Čau. Yes. Sveiki!
Labdien! Hello in Latvia, hello from Kuldīga, all the people here in the room and everyone watching us online.
Yes. We are here to welcome everyone from SDSI, from our students. We are here to welcome our guests from State Chancellery who haven't arrived yet. So at some point there will arrive a bunch of people, we hope. And but I think main actors or main persons here are our SDSI students. Yoo-hoo! Yes, thank you for your input in organizing this, and without your help it wouldn't happen, as many others.
And also I think it a little bit feels like graduation today, because you are very close to concluding your first study year. And on the other hand, we have our year 2 students who are actually graduating very, very soon.
But about them we will speak later.
But about them a bit later, yes. But today we wish you a nice evening, interesting presentations, and we are very thankful to guests from Portugal, Germany, Sweden, Finland, and Estonia. So have a nice event.
Yes.
And we welcome our students for facilitation of this conference.
I just need. So hello everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here today and seeing all these familiar faces and new faces as well with our speakers. Thanks to everyone that is watching us from their homes. We are very excited about this day. And without further ado, I would like to invite Joana Moreira on stage as our first speaker.
First of all, thank you so much to both Hilses for the invitation to being here today. I've been on your side before. I did a similar course in a different context, so I know as well what's going through this journey and kind of achieving the moment where you pitch your idea. So thank you for the invitation. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about myself. In Portugal, when we talk about public sector, there's all these titles like doctor, engineering, and so on. And as soon as I get the chance, I tell them, please, Joana, I'm not an engineer, I'm a designer actually. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a PhD, and as soon as I get that chance, I try to break that barrier, because I believe that proximity is the key for us to get people involved in the process that we are working on. So, at the municipality of Porto, one of the aspects of the strategy is to transform the relationship between citizens and the municipality of Porto. And I'm here today to talk with you about Porto Innovation Hub. But I cannot talk about Porto Innovation Hub without talking about Porto Digital. I'm sorry for the ones that have been with us in the morning. This part will be a little bit similar, but I think it's important to give the right context to everyone that is here today. So Porto Digital is a non-private association that is funded by 3 entities, public entities. One is the municipality of Porto itself, the University of Porto, and then Metro de Porto, which is a company responsible for one of the ways of mobility in the city. So the main goal of Porto Digital is to promote projects in the sphere of digitalization, but at the same time on the innovation sphere. So all based on technology. So our mission, and we like to say that we are the toolbox for innovation and digital transition in the city, and that we hope that by supporting the city in this process, we believe that we'll provide better quality services and a better quality of life to the citizens as well. And when we talk about the citizens, might seem too narrow, but when we talk about it, we don't see the citizens, only the people that live in the city, but everyone that kind of goes to work, everyone that just goes there and visits. We always take into account all the stakeholders that the city has. So basically at Porto Digital, we have three main areas on our strategy: connect, co-create, and collaborate. And I will explain you a little bit of each one. But the truth is that at Porto Digital, everything started on the technology base. So Porto Digital started with a strategy that was basically to build the communication infrastructure of the city. And because we were able to do such thing, we are really installing optical fiber in the street. So we are basically distributing the network and creating this infrastructure, which allowed us to build on top of that and create new services, such as, for example, Porto Free Wi-Fi. So if you all go to the city, then you have access to Porto Free Wi-Fi, because we at Porto Digital have worked to build this infrastructure. On top of that, we are then adding this layer of an intelligent city and a smart city. So we are applying sensors, we are gathering data, and this led us to what we call the urban platform, where we basically have all these layers and work with the data that we have. Here you can see a couple of images. The one on top is where you can see the optical fiber network, and basically we are connecting different kinds of buildings in the city. We are connecting social housing, we are connecting schools, universities, public administration buildings, all sort of buildings that we have in the city. Right here, this darker image, you can see the flow of the city. Basically, we like to say that this is the beat of the city, because it's truly like the veins of your heart, right? So you can see where it's colder, where it's warmer, and basically we definitely see the movements of the city and how people connect and disconnect from the Wi-Fi as well. So because all of this, we are then able to build dashboards and work with that data to support us in the decision. Obviously there's still a long way to go, but we are basically trying to define that. Because we have this infrastructure, then we are able to create digital services and build on top of that, services that definitely will support the citizens, but at the same time, and in order to do so, we use innovation methodologies. And we also want people that are skilled within the municipality and that know what innovation is about. So we basically work in all of these dimensions. Here you can see a couple of images. I will talk with you later about one of the examples that I have here. And last but not the least, the collaboration part. So the city has a huge ecosystem with companies, with startups, with academia, with industry, and we need to bring them all together in order to accelerate innovation, because when we think about a city, we cannot think about a specific part of the city. We need to look at it as a system and how all of this connects. So how we need to always take into account these stakeholders. And these are pictures of some events that we have been doing around. I brought you an example of one thing that we do, if there's sound, which is basically a hackathon that we organize, which is called Hack a City. Where we gather different companies, big companies, startups, students, that basically form groups and participate to tackle a real challenge of the city. Last Hack a City was actually in November. It's this video that you are watching here. We basically the challenge that we launched was regarding mobility in the city and sustainable mobility, and at the end we present a solution. So regarding a possible dashboard to analyze that data and work with that. The interesting thing of this Hack a City is that it's just one day. And last edition we had 120, I guess, participants. Then we involved the city stakeholders as juries, as mentors. So we gathered the community, full day, deep dive in our data and come out with solutions. This is just for you to get a vibe of the event as well. And this is a great way to actually involve the community and kind of together in such a small amount of time reach kind of very interesting results that we as a city need to evaluate the potential of it. We might not use all of it, we might use part, we might not use it, but at least we gather and we put people thinking and working on our data. What we get out of that is that we can have more quality data, because people are working on our data and they are telling us, hey, there's a problem here, hey, there's a problem there. So we can improve the work that we are doing. And that's how Port Innovation Hub is then born, which is basically the platform for strengthening the city's innovation and accelerating the ecosystem. Port Innovation Hub is not just a space, it's much more than that. We gather the community and we move to different places within the city for different activities in order to really accelerate innovation. And we are very lucky. I have another video. I have lots of videos and pictures because I think that's the way to go, and it's more visual and you can truly understand the environment that we have. This event is what we call the Innovation Day at the municipality. The people that you see here are the top to mid-level management of the municipality. The last event, we do it once a year. The last event, we had about 70 participants. So top to mid-level management of the municipality again. And basically, we always bring use cases from within the municipality to the stage, let's say like this. But we also invite guests. Last edition was about continuity and disruption and how this kind of matches in the municipality, in the city dimension. We are very lucky because our vice mayor of Porto is also the counselor for innovation, digital transition and sustainability. So we immediately have the buy-in from the top that we can get. But it's so important to involve the top and mid-level management in this process to have their buy-in so that they can truly spread this word within their scopes. And so taking all of this in consideration, we truly look at the city as a system, and we truly try to look at all the layers that the city has. Therefore, I'm not going to talk about this. I think probably most of you are familiar with the double diamond, but I purposely put this picture here because basically it's important for us to do all the work that we do, that we use methodologies. And therefore, we use design thinking, service design to really either implement digital services or products, but also when we gather the community in these co-creation sessions, we always try to use methodologies that have been tested and that are more than research that can give us a base. So how do we approach and do we see innovation as a design of systems and processes that basically will give us more value to the city and it will be more useful, usable, and also desirable. As I said before, the innovation methodologies are really important, and we work with the top mid-level management that you saw on the previous video on the Innovation Day with these methodologies. At first, we were like, oh my God, are we going to play with Post-its again? Oh my God. You know, like, they saw us as like the kind of innovation corner. They are the innovators. They are the outside of the box people. They are doing it that. But we cannot do that without bringing them all along. Therefore, we have been rethinking public services based on the needs of citizens and the municipality as well. We always need to take in consideration these two perspectives. In the morning, I was actually talking about this and saying that there's no way that we meet 100% of the needs of the citizens and the city as well. So we need to find, like, what's the common ground? Where do we kind of meet in between? And therefore, involving them in this process is also very important. So learning new working methods, experimenting with ideas, don't being afraid to take these methodologies to their work routines as well. It's really important so that we keep encouraging this mindset. And through this video that you are seeing here in Loop, it's basically of one of the many workshops that we organize, a design sprint with this top to mid-level management to basically tell them, hey, innovation is this. We work with these tools. There are these methodologies. They will not get out of that workshop being innovation experts or anything like that, but at least they will be able to communicate with us. So far in these design sprints have gone since 2019, and we have had more than 700 participants. And we keep doing it. We start with the top to mid-level management, and we are going down the ladder in order to involve everyone in the municipality universe. And so far, for us, how this have worked out is that we have now a couple of municipality teams that come back to us and say, hey, I have this problem, can you help me out here? Or, hey, I would like to improve my service with this and that. Or, we have this software, but we don't know if this software will be the best choice because X, Y, and Z. So it's really interesting how the seeds are now kind of growing and coming back to us. So truly about gathering the community, and the community is not only the citizens, the companies, it's also from within. So we need to start talking about innovation from the inside out and not from the outside in. Again, probably lots of you have seen this image quite often, not go into detail, but every time that we design a product or a service, we take this in consideration, the feasibility, the desirability, the viability, and we always try to find where the solution that we want to develop meets. And you will see that on the examples that I will give now, that we always take these processes into account. So, one example that I brought to you today is the Porto Ponto, because that's our brand, is like Porto, period. You know, like there's nothing else. It's the Porto card for the citizens. And this is a service that we created together with a team from the townsman's office and also the IT team, obviously. And basically what this card does is that it allows the citizens to enjoy the city in a different way. So they get a set of advantages and benefits, and they have access to experiences, discounts, for example, such as museum tickets or traffic notifications or cultural events, a diversity of things. When we launched this, we first launched a physical card with 3 to 4, I don't remember now, services associated. Now we have much more. We have a digital version of the card. And also, we are creating new services because we have the Porto Ponto card. For example, we created a service that is regarding mobility, and in Porto, the territory sometimes, so we have the network of buses, and they are not allowed to go to certain streets or certain areas because the territory doesn't allow that physically. So we created a service that people with Porto Ponto card can use and benefit from, that it's called Closer or More Closer, which is basically like a taxi that you can call and will take you from your home or the meeting point to the nearest bus station so that you can do the rest of your journey for a very, very small amount. It's like €1. So you never get a taxi, at least in Porto, for €1. So it's very interesting how things grow. And it's an iterative process. It goes on. And as you can see in the pictures, we have involved the teams truly in the kind of process that I was talking before. I brought you these images, and these are not actually from Cartão Porto Ponto, but it's another service that we have, which is Explore Porto, and we designed this prototype, and we went to the townsman's office to test it with citizens. So it's truly about kind of leveraging the ecosystem that you have and work with that. This is for you to have an idea of all the phases that we went through with Cartão, with Porto Ponto card. So obviously the briefing part and the exploration, but along all these phases, we have involved the citizens, the internal stakeholders, trying to understand the problem. We did several focus groups with IT team, with the mobility team, with the townman's office team, so really to understand their needs in order to create these services. And then we co-created together with them and with the citizens. So when we talk about these kind of services that we have, yes, they are quite often very incremental, but this doesn't mean that it's wrong or bad. For the contrary, it's really, really important that every little change that we do has a huge impact. And sometimes we don't need a bigger budget or we don't need a bigger team. We always like to say that we are creative in that sense, but the truth is that being incremental, doing incremental innovations is such as important as having disruptive or radical innovations. Mainly in the context of the city, incremental have a huge impact. I brought you here a project which is called Community City. I will briefly explain it, but if you are interested, after all, I can talk with you more about it. The Community City is basically a European-funded project where we have 3 main cities that are Porto, Helsinki, and Amsterdam that are part of the consortium. This is organized in open calls. The goal of the Community City is basically through technology, create solutions for the marginalized communities. So it's a very specific target group that is quite often forgotten in this kind of processes when we are talking about a city. And also when we talk about technology, we assume, and the hypothesis like they don't have the skills or they don't know how to manage this. So we quite often don't work with these vulnerable communities about these topics. Why I'm talking about Community City is because we are truly trying to involve this forgotten, let's say like this, community. So basically, the process is that we have several open calls. And through those open calls, a company, a startup, someone that has a solution that fits a challenge that we have previously identified can apply. But the challenge for us with this project, I will show you in a minute, is that how do we co-create the challenges, actually? Because we really want to identify challenges that will provide us with solutions and pilots that will truly have an impact in the community. I have a video for you that is from actually the first open call. This is in Portuguese, so I will speak over the video. If you can just, yes, thank you. Basically, this was a project that was a pilot from Fraunhofer, some of you might know, where we work with, I'm forgetting the word in English, a house for basically, I'm trying to remember the word, I will not, but I will continue. But basically, it's a house where the elderly can go to kind of spend their day. And Fraunhofer wanted to kind of create and work with them in order to give them more digital literacy, basically. So they have gone through 6 months with several activities. They bought them phones, they have done games, and these people that participated in the pilot, they have learned how to do video calls on WhatsApp. They were so happy that they can connect with their loved ones so easy. And this kind of, usually these kind of places, they don't have funding for this kind of activities quite often. So this was a huge opportunity for them as a stakeholder of that neighborhood to be able to have such a pilot in the city. I think, I don't remember the numbers properly, but I think it was about 10 people that participated in the pilot. Not everyone wanted to participate, but for Fraunhofer it was an opportunity to test what the research that they were doing and validate their research, and at the same time for the users and for the people managing the space was also an opportunity to have an activity that people can engage easily. So how do we do this challenge co-creation? For us it has been a huge journey and a huge learning from the first open call to the third open call that we are now. The first open call, we started, okay, let's identify some challenge. We gather some local NGOs, some local entities, and we try to build upon that. And although the challenges were good and they were meeting the needs of the citizens and the local stakeholders, we were like, okay, but we need to involve more the community in this process. They cannot just, like, okay, there's a pilot, we implement it, they participate somehow, and then, okay, but maybe we can truly involve them more in this process. Then on the second open call, we did a workshop together with local NGOs and local entities and some members of the community. But to be honest, was not even what we wanted, because gathering this community, and especially the vulnerable community, at least in Porto, is so hard. Because we always have to have like a middle management person to do that communication. We cannot just, like send a text message, or how do we reach them actually? Because these social neighborhoods in Porto, they have their own life and dynamics. And actually in Porto, we have a special role in the social neighborhoods, which is basically the neighborhood manager. So they are responsible for parts of the social neighborhoods. But when they come to us, we don't want them to come and participate in this workshop and say, hey, there's a hole in my street, I need you to fix that, because they look at us as the municipality. So they look at us as like someone that will fix their problems in the social neighborhood that they have. So how do we turn this around and we show them that there's value if they participate on this? We will definitely not solve all the problems that they have in the social neighborhood, but we believe that we'll be able to, at least if they are involved, to better meet their needs. So we came up with this process that we are going on now on this third open call, which is basically a set of workshops with different goals. The first ones are like diagnose. So we did two, one with the local entities and local NGOs, because they are the ones that have the contact with the target group that we want to work with, and then one with the community itself, through this role that I just explained you about, the neighborhood manager. And it was very interesting because we could not do the same type of workshop that we do with local entities and NGOs with the community, because they don't have the same perception. Like if I go there and talk about, hey, there's a pilot, they will be like, what? What? Right? Like the slang, everything needs to be adapted for them to be engaged and be involved. So after that, and after we identified the opportunities for the two different groups, we then created this matchmaking session where we analyzed first the learnings that we gathered from these two workshops, created the areas, and then we put the community working together with the local NGOs to identify the elements that are required in the challenge, like the target group, the needs, so that we can be specific about it. And now, we haven't done this yet, but we will do a fourth workshop that will be basically to co-define the open call challenges together. So what we are preparing is that now we need to analyze the results from the last workshop again, and with that, formulate the challenges. But we want them to kind of give us input on those challenges, but at the same time, to give us to tell us hey, this criteria is more important than that criteria, because we have a set of criteria already defined by the consortium, and one of them is, for example, co-creation. And we want them to participate and define with us the weight of those criteria so that we can better fit the solution. I have another, and I will be quick about this because I think my time is almost over. One is the call. This initiative is a call for activities. It's a very simple way to involve the community, and it's basically us supporting the community and increasing their impact. The call for activities is basically we support the community by financing some of the activities that they want to do. So they go through a process of application, and after being selected by a jury, we launch that. We have done this for some years now. This video is not the most updated one, but you can have a sense of some numbers. So far along the years, we have had several applications, several projects and initiatives. And why do we do this? This for us is kind of simple, but it truly accelerates the ecosystem when it comes to innovation and gathers the community, and kind of it brings this proximity to us. So how do we truly involve the citizens? We have different phases of involvement. It can be in a more, we will keep you informed of what we are doing, because we always try, but in the city communicating is definitely a challenge. We can consult and like, okay, we will acknowledge that you have these needs and we'll try to understand how can we meet them. Or if we go around all the things that we have here, we can truly make them part of this process. In our case, depending on the projects that we have, we involve them in different ways as well. These are just like 4 learnings that along the time we kind of were able to gather. Engage early and often, so as often as you can engage with the community in different ways. It is a meetup, it's a more formal, more informal, whatever, engage. That's the only way to bring the stakeholders closer to you. Simplify co-creation, like simplify the processes, the vocabulary, everything, define clear roles whenever you do this kind of processes. This will support you in that sense. Measure and adapt. Measuring is always a challenge when it comes to co-creation and innovation, but we always try to define for each project, okay, how do you know that this has been successful or not? But we not always succeed in that. And then kind of creating this sense of community. And last but not the least, the most important thing for us is that we see the city as a living lab. So what we want to do and what we are always trying to reach for is that real-world experimentation, allowing the city as an organism that it is, that is alive, changing all the time with a so fast pace that we can, together with the community, basically test solution in the real-world context in order to be more, to prioritize the economic development, sustainability, and work on all these topics. And this is basically how we contribute. This is coming back to the beginning of my presentation, which is basically how we contribute to transform the relationship between citizens and the municipality of Porto. So thank you so much. Should I? No? Good?
Yeah, you can
Okay.
stay. You can stay with me if you want. Actually, I'm very happy to have Joanna here with us because it happens that I'm from Porto. So I would never thought back in some months that I would have my city in Coldiga. So I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. And now we have our second group of guests coming from middle of Europe. So we fly from Portugal to Germany. So I welcome Lisa and Tobias from City Lab Berlin.
I just need to go to Joanna because I need the clicker. Thank you very much. No problem. Okay. So, hello and welcome. First of all, thank you very much for the warm welcome here, and a huge shout out to your fantastic program here. We had the honor to listen to pitches. We took part of a workshop this morning, and it's really exciting. My name is Tobias, and
I'm Lisa. Hi.
we are from the City Lab in Berlin, and we would like to take you on a journey into a project we did with the public administration in Berlin. And before we start our journey, I would like to introduce you the City Lab. The City Lab in Berlin is Berlin's public innovation lab, just only lab. And it was founded in summer 2019. And it started with a bunch of people, and now we are around 40 people. And what we are doing is we are developing prototypes together with the public administration, the civic society, and academia. And we were run by the Technologiestiftung Berlin, and we were funded by the Senate Chancellery of Berlin. The City Lab is an open space in Berlin where you can visit us all the time, and we have a small exhibition where you can see some parts of our projects and products we develop together with our partners. What we also do is events. Yes. We are also doing meetups and events and bringing people together, because what we've learned on our journey is it's so important to speak to the people gathering around and talk about the challenges a city have. Also, this is a very warm invitation to our summer conference, which is happening on June 27. So if you have any chance to come to Berlin, please come by and visit us at our summer conference. So the QR code if you want to register. But now let's start. How do we work? Maybe this picture is familiar to you. This is the still a normal procedure if you start an IT project in Berlin. A lot of paper, a lot of stakeholders, and of course, waterfall management. And we try in the City Lab to be a bit different. We try to be agile. I know agile is a buzzword, but if you see this picture, we try to locate us in the second row to do iterative developments, doing design sprints like in Porto, and we try to learn at every step we are doing. We are not trying to define the goal at the end of the project and saying, okay, this is where we want to go. Maybe let's start openly. Let's start with gathering insights, and then we decide what would be the next step. This is also the double diamond. I don't want to talk about it, but I just want to show you our process, how we work in the City Lab is, of course, familiar to you. And we also have created a handbook, Öffentliches Gestalten, where we try to put methods in for agile work. And what is maybe special for this book, it's written in a really easy language where everybody can understand. We try to not use buzzwords. We just try to explain how every person can work innovatively and during an innovation process. You can also get this handbook on English when you get the QR code. Otherwise, you can visit our website. But now let's start the journey. How many of you here have been to a citizen's office? How was your experience? Was it good? Was it not so good? No? Oh, okay. Okay. This is maybe the most reaction to this question because, especially in Berlin, the citizens' offices have a lot of challenges, especially the challenge to be prepared for the future. Normally, you have to go to a citizen's office if you want something from the city. And this was the starting point of this project where the citizen's office in Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg come to us and said, okay, we want to be prepared a bit for the future. We want to know how we can deliver services to all the people of Berlin, maybe in person, but also digitally. And so this was the start of a really great journey where we learned a lot, and this was the beginning of the journey. We started openly. We decided to start in the open and said, okay, we don't want to say, this is our goal, this is the way we want to go. Let's start and gather insights. So on the left picture, you see the diary study. We made a diary study with all the employees of the citizens' office to get insight, how do they feel? What do they think during a workday? Is there something they can improve? And so we constructed the diary study with 8 questions they had to answer every day during 6 weeks. A learning 6 weeks is way too long because it's really difficult to answer 8 questions in the time for 6 weeks. We got a lot of insights and we made some clusterings and we know, okay, maybe these are some challenges like technical problems or just human-made problems like noisy offices, but also the language which is used in offices is not really easy understandable. It's an administrative language where people in Berlin do not understand, especially the people in Berlin who does not speak German as a mother language. So after the diary study, we tried to get a picture by ourselves. So we decided to do a shadowing. So this is a situation of the shadowing you see on the right side. So we had the chance to visit a citizen's office, and watched all the day the people who are working there and of course the people who are running into the citizens' offices. We did this in two parts. We made shadowing without intervention. We were just looking and made our notes. And on the second part, we made a shadowing with intervention. Like we were trying to interview the people who were coming to the citizens' offices. And of course, we are asking the employees, staff, and asking like, why did you do this? Maybe it's much more easier if you do this. And they are explaining to us why they are doing things like they do. And after these research phase, we did some sessions, co-creation sessions together with the employees, and we tried to find out which insight is really important, which challenges are really important. So we did a lot of co-creation sessions, and then we together found out which topic is maybe the main topic we want to get on first. And it was not that difficult, but it was really groundbreaking. It was like Berlin has a problem with appointments that people do not show up. Berlin has really a huge amount of no-shows in the citizens' offices. And so we tried to understand why the people do not come to their appointment. What's the reason? Because, as you maybe know, getting an appointment in a citizen's office is really difficult sometimes, and in Berlin it's much more harder. So we talked to people, we made interviews, and then we understand why people are not coming to their appointments. And then we tried, maybe it could be a solution to do a check-in system, like that the citizen's office know that you are there. Because now in Berlin, the actual situation is that if you are working there and you are calling a person for the appointment, you need to wait at least for 3 minutes until you can mark this appointment no-show. And if you count up all these 3 minutes, the whole day, in a week, in a month, it's really a huge amount of minutes that it's wasted, waiting of people. So we developed with our prototyping team a prototype, which is called Bürgeramt Check-in Pilot. And this prototype had the task to show if the idea of a check-in is useful, if it works for the people inside of the citizen's office, but also for the people of Berlin. So we developed this prototype, and we got the chance to test it. Before we did this test, we made a small in-house test. And so we run this prototype to show it to the employees and get the employees on board, because, of course, they had a lot of questions. Why does the prototype look like this? Why is the button on the right side and not on the left side? And this was also a huge learning for us, that it's not that easy that we develop a prototype and bring it to the people and say, okay, please use it. So there needs to be a really good process of boarding the people on a prototype. Of course, we had some fun. We had regularly meetings to talk to the employees and get to know how's the situation, how's the prototype working, and what can we improve? Do we need to improve the prototype? And then, after the first testing, we had really good results. And so we got the green light, the okay, from the authorities to do a second test in a much more bigger citizen's office. And so we did it, and this is maybe, you can get a smell of the atmosphere in the citizen's office in Berlin. And we run this second test. And this was really also a challenge, because as you can see in the picture, we were thinking about, okay, this citizen's office is really big. How to navigate the people to go to our check-in system. Because all the people who are entering a citizen office are like having their smartphone, walking into the citizen office, and they were just searching for the monitor with the appointment number. And they do not recognize anything else. They were just like under stress and looking, okay, where's my number? And so we tried to, using tape, color tape, also on the floor, and we marked like runways to guide the people to the check-in system. And so this was simply the counter of the check-in system. It was one people, a small table, a laptop, and the software. And it was a really nice side effect that we noticed that when people are arriving at a citizen's office and they are being greeted by a person, they are feeling much more better and they are feeling much more comfy because they had the chance to ask a question. They can calm down and they know, okay, the citizen office knows that I'm here. But on the other side also, the people who are working in the citizen office are feeling much more better because they know if the people has done the check-in, they're in the house. So I do not waste my time for waiting maybe of a no-show. Of course, we did some quantitative research and we asked the people how they like the new check-in process. And this was also a huge challenge because, as you know, in Berlin there are a lot of people who are not speaking German. So how to navigate, how to collect their, was it okay or not so okay? So we just use these batons with some small balls and we just said, okay, was it good or was it bad? And we handed out the balls to all the employees and asked them to give one ball after finishing their services and saying, okay, just rate us if it was good or bad. And so this was a really simple method for just gathering some insight. The key learnings. We learned a lot. Lisa will also talk about the second prototype. The first learning of the first prototype is empathy is the key. It's nothing new to you, but it was really new for the public administration, that it's really a key of success to have empathy and understand the needs of the people of the city, but also the need of the people who are working for the public administration. And the second key learning is a champion in the city government at the right level of authority is a booster. As already Porto has told us, it's really important to have the people of the higher management level with you, that they will say, okay, this is really useful, we are doing this project, and you will get all the resources. The third learning is prototyping and testing for acceptance. And of course, gathering data of the testing. Because you can do some post-it sessions, you can do some design sprints, but what the public administration is really interested in is, of course, data, figure, and proof. And if you build a prototype and you prove that the idea works, it's a really huge succession and it's really crucial for acceptance. The fourth learning is a lack of integration in existing IT is a significant hurdle for testing. We had some challenges for integrating the prototype because it was really difficult to using the existing system. So we need to do this testing by putting a small table on just a laptop, but we did it. And this was really nice.
Thank you. Okay, so basically I'm going to present to you the second prototype that came out of this diary study that was done at the Citizens Office. So this one is called the check for registration check, or in German Anmeldecheck. And basically what the problem was is that people were not well prepared with their documents, so they were missing some documents. And the thing was, we found out that the language, and Toby was talking about that before, is very bureaucratic, right? So there'll be some like legal phrases and so on, and people would not be sure what they have to bring and stuff. And I mean, I studied administration and I'm sometimes overwhelmed by it as well. So it's like, it's not dependent on educational background. So we basically, together with the prototyping team, developed this prototype, and it's very simple actually. So it just asks you a couple of questions, like, are you new in Berlin? Are you over 18 years old? To find out what documents you need to bring. Oh yeah, by the way, so every person in Germany has to go to the city they live in, or they move to do register. But yeah, so basically that's the prototype, and what we did was basically before the appointments, send an email with the prototype for people to just do it. Okay, and then on the left side you can see basically the checklist that came out of it, so people could tick their boxes, tick the boxes, and then see if they have the document ready. And then on the right, yeah, obviously that's me, and then my colleague Miriam. And yeah, we talked to people at the citizens' office who actually used the prototype. So we kind of went two ways. We wanted quantitative data and qualitative data. So we basically also asked the staff who talked to people to put in what kind of problem people had with the documents, to then see if there was like a difference between the weeks before the prototype and then the prototyping week. Also kind of checked how many shows or no-shows there were, and then, yeah, talk to people to just see what they were saying. And yeah, it was, so for me it's great to talk to people. It's like not an everyday occurrence. You can do testing, so this is like a month ago. So it was really fun for me. And we had some interesting quotes, so we definitely reached our goal to prepare people better. So we had people say, without a checklist, I would have missed an important document. We also had some like negative or neutral feedback, of course. So somebody was saying the check thing reminded them of a check-in at the airport, and that's not what we want, right? We want to set the right expectations. So that's maybe in need of a next iteration as well. But yeah, somebody was like, yeah, it's great, it's becoming more efficient overall, so now at the citizens' apartment they also have some good reminders, and I don't have to deal with this as much, which is, I think, everybody's goal when it comes to bureaucratic things. So we got some key results as well. We had very positive feedback, which was very nice, talking to people who were actually thanking us for talking to them, which was amazing. And then also we measured some data within the prototype. So we have a conversion rate of 58%, which is pretty high for a digital product, which is basically the people who click on the first page and then make it through to the last page of the prototype were 85% of all people who used it, were 120 people in total. So a trickle-down effect actually was also the reduction of no-shows. So that was by 4% because people got attention that they had the appointment through the new mail and then kind of canceled their appointment. And this sounds like not much, right? But it's only one service. So if you apply that logic to all other services, you might get a bigger reduction rate. Yeah, and in the end, I think this is really important for service design as well, to consider that not everybody wants to do online services. So there's people who might not want to put in their data, right? But there's also definitely older people who might be lonely, or everybody can be lonely, of course, but like who might just want to talk to somebody, right? So that was important for us to mark as well. So online appointments will not replace all appointments, and we can put the prototype, put it on the website so people have good information, but then still can go to the citizen's office. So last slide for me. For this project, so basically what we also think is really important for culture is to celebrate the end of a project. So we celebrated the testing, invited all the employees in training to come to us, show them our results, thank them, have a little snack, because that's for us, I think, is also part of cultural change and mindset shift, because that's not, in our opinion, happening enough, having a little celebration. And I think it's also important to just keep everybody in the loop, right? To keep up with the results. This is it for this project. I thought, because we got so many students here and some representatives from government, I'll show you actually another insight from my former workplace. This will be very short, but I used to work, before I came to City Lab, at the German Federal Pension Fund. So directly in administration, and our City Lab is kind of on the in-between, I would say. Also funded by the government, but not within the government. So I was talking to my former colleague, Maria Formisano, who is working there as a service designer. And yeah, I was just asking her some things, doing an interview, and asking her why service design for the public sector? Why should you work there, and why should the government want service design? And she was saying that for her motivation, the great thing is that there's a lot of leeway to like pave the way, right? There's not that many service designers in administration yet, and shape how it's implemented. And also, of course, I think for many people working in these services, the societal relevance, right? And with the German Pension Fund, they're reaching basically everybody who's employed in Germany, right? So a large number of people. And what she also said, citizens want transparency. They're looking to participate and are happy to do so if they get the chance. What I also experienced talking to people, like they were happy to talk to us. And then what's important when it comes to hiring service designers, especially for administration. So what we also talked about before today, top-down support, very important, maybe the most important thing. So her boss just came to the pension fund 1.5 years before she came, and he came from the private sector. So he was already like into the topic and wanted to hire new people, right? And it came together kind of with the digital strategy they have. So she had some really good like top-down support in her department. Then also she really mentioned that like really adamantly providing suitable equipment and resources. So there's only PCs and she needed a Mac. So she was like really keen on getting that MacBook and she got it in the end. So it's good to keep on it, right? And of course resources, so you need to talk to people if you're doing service design. And so basically they now have an agency that gets them people to talk to, which wasn't there before. So that's really important. And also, of course, creating the right mindset, because with leadership personnel, she sometimes had the experience that they would think that they knew how the job should be done, right? And maybe that the employees didn't know as well. So you really need to get the right mindset to really support these projects and also offer your staff the possibility to talk to service designers and actually give your opinion and not be afraid of what their opinions might be about their work. And then the last thing, also really important, that's the work she was doing basically with the Department for Staff, is providing arguments on why you should hire service designers. So in terms of tasks, she was saying that basically sometimes administration is afraid that they're not finding the right tasks. And so service designers are open, they find their tasks, right? They find projects to work on. Results, of course, presenting your results, always important. And then financial planning, because overall they're hiring a lot of like contractors or like consultants, and that's much more expensive. So that's always a good argument to hire in-house staff. Yeah, and that's all from us. Do you have any questions? Please let us know.
Okay, everyone. So we invite again Joanna to the stage, because you might have some questions as well. And if anyone wants to ask something, this is your moment.
It's your chance.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, Evie, leading Innovation Lab at the State Chancellery of Latvia. I was interested, you speak about also the design thinking model that you had at the slide, but do you also involve your audience in the design sprint process? Because we work very much, for example, if I work with an agency, I bring their people in the whole process, starting from problem till prototyping. How do you do that? Because I didn't hear that from the presentation. Thank you.
We are trying to make a teach the trainer method, so that we are starting from point zero until the end, that we are bringing the people together and we teach them the whole process. Our hope is that, of course, if the project or product development is finished, that the people of the public administration can do this project by their own. So yeah, we are doing this teach the trainer.
Hi, I'm Tommaso Corà from Italy, but I am a lecturer here in SDSI. I have two questions for you both, Berlin and Porto. The first one is where money comes from. So is it a municipality internal budget, or is there any money from external funding, whatever? And I don't know if Porto is still here. but is coming. Can I do the second question?
Just wait a bit, they answer and then...
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, so the City Lab is a project within a NGO. So the NGO is a foundation that organizes everything with the project and manages us, but the money is actually fully coming from the Berlin government. So we are funded by the state chancellery. We also have to basically hand in a report every year, what we're doing. We have certain goals, and that's where we get the funding from, basically. Okay, so basically, we got a role in the Berlin government that kind of developed over the years. So now it's a chief digital officer. And it's definitely different from, I wouldn't necessarily say party to party, but person to person, like what kind of goal they have. So when this role started out, it was very like, they didn't have a lot of resources, so they didn't even have a team, so there wasn't a lot of project going on. But now that the topic has grown as well, it's becoming more important also, of course, for the mayor of Berlin. I think the style of cooperation has also changed, so it's more involved, I would say. But yeah, it's definitely changing in terms of what the political priorities are as well. Sure.
Okay, we have another question. Then come. Okay. Tommaso, you will get your answer from a lovely lady from the municipality of Porto, while Joanna, we meet her soon. She's also coming, but you can back her up.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Should I stay here? Okay. Just to give you an answer to your question concerning Porto as well. So we have Porto Digital, that work in the innovation field, we have two different sources of funding. One is coming directly from the municipality, that gives us a certain amount every year to proceed with the works we have to do in the city. And the second comes from the funded projects. So as many as we got, and the best percentage of funding that we get, better for the city, of course. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we hope the heat is not bringing you down in your mood, because we are going to have now a good energizer, as service design requires. Come, Som.
Thanks very much.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the presentations, the talks, but at SDSI Open, we would not just want to leave you with these amazing insights, but also hopefully with some new connections. So to do that, I would like to request all of you to rise up and be ready to move. What I want you to do is very simple. I want you to look around the room, find someone who you haven't met before, or someone who you want to know a little more about. And I want you to go to that person, introduce yourself, and answer the question that you see on the screen. Okay? Once, you will have 2 minutes with this person, and once I say switch, you go to the next person that you would like to meet. Let's begin. No.
All right, let's switch. Excuse me, let's switch. And you can see the new question on the screen. Why are you there? Go to someone else. Why are you with each other? She approached me. No, leave her. Go to new people. Okay, I think we can switch again. And we go a little deeper this time. And I think for one last time, we can switch. One last time, one other person.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
I think I'll get. Okay, I think we have had enough for now. I hope that some of these connections can be continued in the networking event that we'll have afterwards. For now, please get back to your seats, and I would like to welcome Danielle Kotsuba. Thank you.
No? Yes, you can. So I'll take the clicker. Thank you very much. So, sveiki, kaimini. Come on. I had a person confirming that the pronunciation was correct just before, during the energizers we did. So, hello from Estonia, and hello from Academy of Arts. And it's lovely to be here with my dear colleagues, Carolina and Jörn. We're sitting with Jörn, like there are two desks between, one desk between us. So we are truly partners in design crime. But, thank you very much for the previous presentations. I'm really thinking what I'm going to talk today, because they basically covered everything that I wanted to cover. But maybe, so I'll cover it from our perspective. And I'll try to maybe bring in more of the understanding of, from the policy making also perspective. What is this that we are actually, that design-based maybe or innovation-based policymaking is about? So there are many ways to approach actually policymaking or policy design, or let's say influence people to do what, to act in certain ways, right? And one of the ways is the rule of law, right? Legislation. And this means that if you are, that you cannot exceed the speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour in a city, then you have to obey it. And not knowing the law does not exempt you from doing it. But we all know that there is lots more to it than just the rule of law, right? In practice, we see that people are exceeding for various reasons. And if we add to it, why don't people sort trash, for example? Why do people go for alternative medicine? Why don't non-native speaking people learn native language? Then we see that the picture is quite diverse in that sense, mildly put. So the question I propose for today's talk is, what problem are we actually trying to solve? It's somewhat of existential in policy making in itself. It's an existential question when we talk about policy making. What problem are we actually trying to solve? And I would like to shed some light in the learnings of Estonian public sector innovation team that I was blessed to be a part of for 5 years, and to share what was the learnings and of designers working in central government level now. If we heard local government level and some from central government, and I will keep continuing in the central government level, but I try to be as simple as possible and have be clear, basically. So 6 years ago, in Estonian public sector, there was a task force. And a task force is a unit or a group of people coming around a certain topic, smart people, discussing it and making proposals. And then they go during their own way. And there was a public sector and social innovation task force. And one of the suggestions was made that you should create this kind of in-house innovation unit or design-based approach unit. So if designers talk about design-based approach, then for public sector officials, design-based approach is the same as innovation-based approach, basically. So as a result of this proposal, in the government office of Estonia, there was created a unit, an experimental unit for 3 years, and to serve ministries and their subsidiaries, sub-organizations. And to answer your question that you're going to ask me later, then the money came from half from European Union and from half from ministries. So we needed to have the input from the ministries for them to have like sense of ownership in this. When you put money, you demand, and you put it into more effort and thought and everything also. So I can elaborate. But now, actually, as I told, it was 6 years ago. Now the team is running on a government budget. And our goal, our job was to report to the Board of Secretary Generals and get a mandate to work on specific problems or topics. So these are the things that I'd like to go through just concisely. And one of the key elements of what we tried to bring was, or support ministries do, is create more user-friendly and human-centered public services. Also connect. It wasn't that we were working on one ministry on one problem, but we connected collaboration. We created room for collaboration between multiple stakeholders with quite often quite diverse interest in the problems. Introduced new ways of working, new points of view on specific topic. Hence the question, what problem are we actually trying to solve? Provide faster. Our demand from the Secretary Generals was that please don't copy legislative process. We have best experts in Estonia doing it already. Provide an alternative, faster process for the legislative process. And one of the things that we reached during these 5 years was the fact that, that's also maybe innovation team is at the moment doing is supporting experimentation. or measuring what works. So, So our job was to run innovation programs, or let's say, as previous speakers also introduced, like these design-based programs. They were with different time scale. The innovation program was a 10-month program, and the innovation sprint was a 2-month, or let's say 1 month and 6-week program. And there were open call for ministries to submit their topics, their very acute problems, to address them together. But next to it, we also had networks, and we started to see that in ministries and in sub-organizations, there are people whose task is to develop services, or like quality assurance, or let's say innovation specialists, service designers, etc. And they're quite often were alone. So our task was to connect them, because being alone against a huge wall, then it's overwhelming. And but the challenges that people are facing are the same, actually, and it's same worldwide, actually, that we managed to understand during our work. And the key basically also task was to talk endlessly about what is it what we're doing, how is it what we're doing, and what is the benefit that you can actually get from it. So evangelism was key thing. And we see that when we started out with trying to prove ourselves, then when we get going and we got some projects and we got with the results, then things became much more easier, and the work started to talk for itself. So user-centric, and so initial question, what problem are we actually trying to solve? So one of the programs that we ran, it's a project to exemplify the question. We had Social Insurance Board coming to our program with the question, how to automate disability allowance. People in Estonia have to apply for disability every 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, dependent on your disability, dependent on your issues. And but the Social Insurance Board, which is a subsidiary of Ministry of Social Affairs, sorry if it's going to be too complicated, I'm going to try to be as easy as possible, knew that there are a lot of troubles and problems with applying for disability. People are really struggling with. There is a lot of paperwork, etc. And they thought that they want to do some good for the people, right? And they wanted to automate it. But during our problem, there was a default thing. And one of the things is that we did with the team, we had to do the field work together. The people who are designing the policies for the people had to go and talk with the people about the policy that they're going to design with, to understand the context of where the problem lies. And as anthropologists say, context is everything, then this was some important thing to understand. So when they went to understand what was the problem, then what they found out is that the applying for the disability isn't the hardest thing for the people. But with the disability, they get allowed to, for additional services from basically across the whole nation, or like public sector. From the employment office, from the health insurance office, from the social insurance office, from the local government, and keeping everything in mind is a huge challenge for a parent whose child, for example, is with a severe disability, and most of her time goes in taking care of her child. So I remember when the team presented their findings, and they said that people don't want disability, they want help. And there was like, this is something that you're talking about, empathy. This is everything, you know. This is how can you design services if we don't understand the context, we don't empathize with the problem. And so the team, so we didn't end there, right? Quite often we see that in public policy making also is that we get like reports and research done in certain topics, and they make suggestions, and they're it. But the innovation process or design-based process provides you that we're going to go and try out to think about solutions also. And the solution space is the difficult one, or the thing that takes quite a lot of more energy and different thought. So instead of trying to automate the disability, what the team started to work on is when the person applies for the disability, then the services are going to provide it proactively. So you see that there is a shift in the understanding what the problem is that they're actually trying to solve. This is when you start to analyze it from a different point of view, from the point of view of context or user's perspective. So as I said, that our core, maybe one of the core principles of our work was that we didn't do the work ourselves. There were only 3 people, 3. Quoting Tristan Basin, there is only so much that 3 people can do. But I think we managed to do quite a lot in that sense. So you can see pictures from Ministry of Environment riding with a garbage truck, collecting garbage, sorting, going to agricultural, basically farmers, to see what is the context in usage of agricultural diesel, for example, or police who are trying to reduce traffic speeding. What is the context there? And the question is, who is the user, right? Is it the guy in the middle, or do we consider everyone else also? And this is something that we really try to enforce or support, that, you know, understanding the perspective of usage. The second thing that we really, our key point was to connect people. And we never took one, if a Ministry of Culture would come with their project, then we already knew that there are many more ministries working on the same project from a different angle. And it was important to cross the silos, right? Because we are already talking about it, but there is lacking of, let's say, space-time oasis to reach the boundaries of a silo. But I'm going to get to it also. What's behind it? And it's not only about silos, it's also about the process itself also. We think that it's a simple thought, or it's a simplistic thing to think it's that people don't want to do any good. It's like a public understanding of public sector quite often is, like you read in media that people are not wanting to do or lazy or something, right? It's quite often the opposite, that people want to do, but they're lacking of certain specific skills. And this is where design-based approach or innovation-based approach is important. So it's not only connecting on one level, on central government level, only ministry officials, but also getting the NGOs, local governments, and people on board and doing it together. So either we talk about co-creation, or what else, it's important to do it together, right? It's just faster. So that's the example from another project that I had a privilege to actually, it's still ongoing, but it was the topic of how to make the life of a single parent more carefree. In Estonia, a single parent is a person whose child's birth certificate does have only one parent's name. So there's only somewhat of 3% of children whose life, who have basically officially, legally, only one parent. And the idea was, it was really open project, and it's been a fantastic journey. But to emphasize the connecting between different levels, we started out with research also. There was some research findings that I'd like to go through that really help to understand why there is a need also, not one-dimensional, let's say only one level of government connecting, but through different levels. That we saw that that what do people bring out, that unawareness when you expect a child, what's going to happen to you when you're raising it alone, lacking of time, and there's actually no time for yourself. You are doing parenting alone, right? Fears start to come related to your child's well-being, and actually the existence of support network is going to be crucial. And people who are stronger in that sense, who have better support network, and the ones who don't. So we got all this information researched and found, so what do you do about it? So typical central government thinking is also quite often that we saw that we try to fight against. That's local municipalities' duty. You can hear quite often, right? Or the second thing is, let's make it into the educational system. Quite typical. But what we started to think is, how can we create a sort of a Mary Poppins service? A service that would provide parents some time to take care of themselves, usually mothers, 90% it's mothers, and to take care of themselves and not worry about the child only. But we see that there is never going to be enough service, like research for that. So we started to think, how can we create like this? What's the alternative for it? An alternative was that we tried to initiate a parenting community in one Estonian city. How much time do I have? 5 minutes? 10? Oh my goodness. Basically, what we going fast forwarding is that what we found is that we found a local actor, local anchor. Thank you very much. You can put the light on. It's energizing. You can do it, Ilse. Anyways, what we found out is that you cannot go into local context from a central government level and start mandating start community. You need to be quite humble and push yourself back. And one of the things that we found out was that getting local anchor organizations to do that was huge benefit. And to fast forward all these things, we had limited time to do that, but during the time we got together and worked with the community, it actually started to come together by themselves and initiated it. So fast forward from it. So it's important. I truly believe that in public sector, as in Porto and in Berlin, you already heard happening, that there needs to be people who connect people, and who connect it not from horizontal but all vertical level, help to reach to local governments. We are all the time saying the local governments are like exhausted with resources, with time, money, people, etc. This is where these connectors are really useful and can have great impact. But also new ways of working, right? Visualizing and helping with visuals to reach common understanding of what is the problem that we're tackling then. Is it user journeys to look at the user journey from not one organization, but the whole journey? It's important, right? Because what happens in a journey in an organization depends on what time does it reach it, etc. Or if you try to create a solution, how do you plan for it? How do you develop it? So playing with Legos, with high official police is somewhat exciting anthropologically, and but it is really useful to try it out cheap and create this kind of space for play, for really opening your mind for new ways of thinking is crucial in that sense. Or if we're talking about like solution, is really like services and supports and legislation everything that there is, or maybe a simple thought through letter can achieve already so much. Behaviorally informed letter. If and this is a letter for reducing basically, I don't know what you say it, like envelope salaries or like cash salaries, basically, and it has already so much effort or effect by just thinking through how do you approach a letter. I'm gonna fast forward, sorry. But it's not only about solutions. Solutions don't happen in its own. You need to create space also and process and time for it. And that's why it's important also that it's not only about that go and think about create, idea for me. It's about creating the process, time, and space for it to happen also. So there are need for different processes, alternative to the legislative process, that we are quite stuck quite often in public governance. And last but not least, definitely measure what works, right? It's an experiment from one of the islands in Estonia, Saaremaa, one of the biggest islands. The biggest island in Saaremaa, the capital of Saaremaa, Kuressaare, when we tried a randomized control trial on how to support increasing that people start to sort garbage, if we make it like easier for them. And there was a experiment. What we did was sending a letter about how to do it, and we sent a letter with a garbage bag, and you can see the results actually change. How many people actually took and started to sort garbage and measure what works. It's for designers also. It's not only policymakers. We as designers also need to equip ourselves with the competency of how do you do a valid test that can be, as you said, later be introduced to the policymakers. Listen, this is what we this is what we should go forward with, because it's a public good that we are creating. So measure what works is maybe the last maybe idea. And of course, our main, what we saw actually is that this isn't about really us, that all these processes is about actually the public officials themselves, and to create more motivated, more inspired people working on our common good is something that is a possible outcome of when you start working that way. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much for your talk, Daniel. We can open up for questions. I already see a hand.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for the talk. I have, I think, a kind of political question. So you had the examples of some social services. And I think in many countries, actually, there's some tension between administration who wants to use these more human-focused approaches, but then also sometimes political players who allocate the money for social services, right? So I was just wondering if you experienced or found any tension to be there between the political...
You mean if how much resources our ministry is putting in?
Yeah, exactly. Like it might be a bit cynical, but like how that political leaders sometimes don't want that money to actually spend it, so they make it. Yeah,
harder. So that's a huge question that you're asking. So I must say that it's not only about the design process itself. It doesn't start with the design process. That's the biggest learning for me personally, I gotta say. It starts quite a lot beyond. What kind of expectations do you design for the design process? What kind of resources do you allocate? Do you allocate time and money and space for it? Or is it just that you take it, you have your desk full, but go and do the so-called innovation process on your Sunday evenings? or whatever. We didn't do it on Sundays. But, you know, after time, right? It doesn't work like that. And we see that there are solutions that are like reach further when when the leadership is behind. We have I don't know if you, I didn't talk about today about timeout station, but in Estonia we had this experiment where we tried different ways of reducing speed. And it wasn't that we didn't, the police didn't fine with money, it fined with time. You had to sit by the side of the road and wait. If you speeded over 20 kilometers per hour or 40 kilometers per hour, etc. But how did we come up to this solution was that there was a clear mandate from the Secretary General of a Ministry of Interior that don't come with the solution that have already been tested. And in 35 years and more, what Estonia has been like independent, everything has been tried out. And to come up with new solution is a challenge, right? But that was like initial, maybe, I know I'm not actually answering your question, but I wanted to get it out because it's so important what happens before, what kind of mandate do you have to, and what happens after it. I'd like to hear what are your actually experiences of officials doing the process after the innovation program themselves. It's a huge challenge. And that's why it's also more emphasizing on, that's why you need in-house people who are connecting and facilitating. That is the reason. But for our innovation program, sorry, one of the things that the ministries didn't have to, by having their input budget-wise in our program, they got what's the word? Same situation. They got approval to participate in the, our program. They didn't have to put money in, but our program didn't, our budget didn't. We only had budget for our own activities. If we're talking about scaling and implementing a solution, it's now a whole another story that we don't have time to come into it. But that's the thing that where magic starts to happen, where is the actual true need is. It's that we think that how does it work in ministry? It's like a person you are going to give so fix a single parent's livelihood basically. I'm exaggerating a bit, but a lot. But still, you are going to get a task to do, and quite often you don't know what the whole process is going to be about. That's why you need support. You need support in connecting and facilitating. Don't ask me again. Ask me one. Any more?
Okay.
I loved really your question. It's like gets me so going.
Okay, so in that case, you have one.
But it's not question, it's compliment. You just showed that Estonia is ahead of us.
I don't know.
Again.
Just a comment, not a comment, but just like a remark is, when we started 6 years ago, I haven't worked there for a bit less than a year, but when we started with innovation team, and it was like working for 2 months, just there is this international community of international government design community or something like that, that is run by actually one of the German, Martin Jordan, yeah, and Kara Kane are running it. Probably met you somewhere there. Anyways, what we saw is that all these countries that are coming together are tackling the same issues. It's not someone is forward. Of course, Helsinki city has 800 designers. Of course, we're envious. But the question is, how far are we in the process? And every country has to find their own, find how it fits into their own ecosystem, right? But we have a lot of good examples. And these kinds of networks are good resource for finding inspiration, like-minded people, And this is also something to really design inside your own country. And these are the people who are going to be later basically vouching for your existence.
Last chance for questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's really inspiring, and I dare to say that I can feel your passion and empathy for this topic, and that's why I dare to ask. So, if you think about a country that doesn't have service design on rolling yet in the public sector, would you say that it is better to start on local level as us, like, you know, service design enthusiasts, or would you say that it has to come from the top? What's your opinion?
You mean from the central government?
Yes.
You know, one of my personal biggest, because before I started working in innovation team, I didn't have any connection with the public sector whatsoever. I was in some like round tables discussing blah, blah, blah. I have no idea what the public sector is about. What the heck are they talking about? Everything I read was, you know, mediated, right? But what I really saw is that there are so many people who want to do something different. One of the things is, you know, just for a like outside party, you know, get into the discussions and circles and inside the context. We actually have to apply the same approach to our work with the public sector or inside the public sector as we do with our users. We need to apply the same kind of empathy towards it. So I would say just pick the willing would be the most, wherever, whatever, whoever, come please, you know, can we do something? And you will definitely find a lot of people, not everyone, but there will be people who will give you the opportunity and chance to do something and to collaborate. So, absolutely. Yeah.
I will not ask about money.
I answered it already.
What was the most difficult law you had impact on?
Law.
Yes, policy.
Difficult. Good question. I don't know if it's like a difficult. It's like what you find out is like all the ministers are in a different level also of understanding or accepting or really implementing design approach. It's not like we talk about public sector as a whole, homogeneous entity. No, it's like an ecosystem of its own, and at the same time, it's part of another ecosystem. So basically, I'd like to give you a politically correct answer in that sense. If you talk only about starving children, you cannot rule a country. So I cannot say what is the most difficult, but all these projects have their own angle, and learning, it's a learning process in itself all the time. What you need to make better, and you need to be agile, as both of the previous presentations have been talking about. It's not knowing what you're doing, it's about going what you're doing. It's like, and learning from it and adapting, changing. So I don't know. So let's say 1 second. We've dealt with inmates, and so this is maybe one, and it's not only about legislation. We have changed the law. It's not that, you know, quite, you don't need to change the law to do something in that sense. You know, service provision, you can do change in service provision, or even the change in mindset is quite important. And last comment, it's not only about external services, it's good for internal services also. If two organizations are going to join, there's going to be huge tensions happening. How do you design the process of connecting? Matchmaking.
Thank you so much for all the questions.
That's a wrong email address. That's a wrong email address, so don't write that email. There is an S missing. between T and J. That's my fault. I'm not trying to ask you, send my emails, and they're going to be in the garbage bin. Sorry.
We have a break now for 15 minutes, and we meet back here for the next talk. Thank you.
Speaker is Stefan Moritz. Please welcome here to the stage. Thank you.
I wanted to offer some time travel. Before we go into how innovation is changing, tune in a little bit to time and space. In the corner there, you can see my great-great-grandparents. And that doesn't mean they're fabulous grandparents, it means they're very old. They've been sort of roughly born 100 years before me, and they're the grandparents that I've never met. So they're the grandparents that I've heard from my mom, who has met them. I've heard the stories, I'm deeply connected, and they had a store that was selling clocks and repairing watches. So I thought when I talk about time, this is a good reference. And it also puts a little bit in perspective where we are all stuck. It's 100 years back, it's relatable, right? It's not dinosaurs, it's not that long ago actually. And we're still stuck. A lot of the thinking that is going on, a lot of the processes, we've talked about policies earlier, a lot of the mental model that we have in what we measure is still very mechanical. We think about time as the most important thing that we should measure, and it's very mechanical. What you put in is what you get out. And our brain is not actually very capable at imagining that things can be exponential, and infinity, and all of those things are very difficult to imagine. Interestingly, back in that time, a famous economist has predicted that right about now, we would actually only work 15-hour weeks. So, interesting question. When you go to companies today, they all have time reporting, and it doesn't look as ugly as this, but it's still the same idea. And who said that we should work 5 days a week, 9 to 5? That was invented for factories, like we just seen in the picture earlier. So to me, that is what we need to relate back to, and we need to get real with ourselves. Why is it that we work so much? Because we don't have to. And probably we shouldn't if we want this to go well. As humans, we tend to relate to our brain with the latest tech that's available. So back in the day, it was hydraulics. So the metaphor that people had to describe how the brain works was relating to hydraulics, to mechanical systems, to electrical, to telegraphic. So that's when the brain was like a phone network. And obviously now it's computing. Interestingly, if you think about this a little bit forward, we're now in a place where we have 6 brains. I recently learned that we have a brain in our heart with about 40,000 neurons that has a lot of traffic up to the head, a little bit less traffic back. So the heart is actually controlling physically a lot more our brain than we think. And we have a brain in our gut. So when people say, what is your gut reaction? There is actually a brain built into our gut that I haven't realized for a while that actually exists. And now we have ChatGPT as our 6th brain. So that's where we're at. And in this shift of the industrial era towards what you could call, there are many names floating around, but let's call it the intelligence revolution. The productivity improvement in the industrial age was about 20%. What we are seeing in front of us now is 30 to 50%. So it's twice as much change as in the last era, if you put it in perspective. Another way of looking at this, just to challenge my own drama, the washing machine has created a lot more improvement for society than the internet. So there's an economist that has actually measured that and found out that because all of a sudden women were able to work and didn't have to do the laundry, it has had a profound change in the sort of fabric of the setup of how we think about work and how we organize our... Now, if you live in a country like Germany, we're still way back. I live in Sweden. It's a little bit better in terms of equality. So there's still some way to go, but I think it gives us a hint at what actually is important. So the technology is great, but we shouldn't be too much preoccupied with the technology. And I love this graph from Astro Teller that basically says technology is developing at an increasing speed. We can't fathom what that is going to be. Personally, that I've worked 20 years now in this area, I feel every year like, okay, the change has never been as slow as now. Like, it's just crazy how quickly things develop. And I suspect that won't change. But humans and organizations, we don't like change, we're not very good at it, and it's difficult. So I think the human question is the most important one to take serious, to work with, to crack, if we want to leverage technology instead of running behind it, which is a lot what I see happening. And I was very disappointed. During COVID, I had a slide that says the next 5 months will change the next 10 years, how we're working. And I was super disappointed how few organizations took the opportunity to reimagine how we're working after COVID. We have seen how it can be fabulous when we react to a change, but very few have taken that opportunity. And I think it's quite scary if we do the same mistake with AI. If we want to have an inclusive, sustainable, innovative transformation, better, healthier lives in front of us, we need to do this differently. And so if we then pivot to the question of policy, public service, and citizen, for me, the interesting thing, it's the only business where the shareholders are on your board. And the citizens are basically the one that you're serving as well as they are voting for who is setting the policy. And yet it's the most disconnected in that direction, and it's the most disconnected in that direction. I met one politician that said, we don't work in silos, we work in straws. And you have a cycle where the people that come in don't just sort of think about what should I do in the next 2 years to prove that I could do at least some of the stuff that was on the poster. They definitely don't want to do the stuff that the people before them did, because in their whole campaign they said, I will do something better. So there are many problems, even though this is extremely simple. It's people trying to do good for the people that they are actually serving, but it feels like a very far disconnect. For me, the biggest problem in that is that we're wasting time, and we've seen some brilliant examples earlier today of what's possible in terms of speeding up processes and allowing new connections. There's different research, but basically if you think about people that are working somewhere for money, they're often not engaged in that. They often don't love their job. They often don't bring their full self to work. 60% in a recent study are thinking about changing jobs. So there's a real problem in this sort of trap that we've created, thinking we need to put time in to work and we're not actually engaged in that. And there is a French book that's called The Bullshit Economy, that's basically looking at the amount of work that we produce that actually has value. And that's something to really think about. If you had a heat map camera, you could go to the average headquarter of an office. It would look like a lot of energy was draining out of that building, because a lot of time is spent on stuff that has no value. And he is claiming in that book, even if you're a cleaner in one of those buildings, you have a bullshit job because there's no value. And I would argue, even though there are some fantastic tools, I'm sure you've all seen Microsoft Copilot. It can write emails for you. It's amazing. It can write summaries of all meetings. But I believe just because we can summarize meetings means we should have boring meetings that don't lead anywhere. And that's actually the biggest problem. I mean, has anybody been to a meeting this year where you felt maybe I could have done something else with that time? Anybody? Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so it means it's great that these tools are coming, but many companies introduce ChatGPT as a co-pilot to their people without any training. No training for the employees, no training for the leaders. And I mean, a PDF on the internet doesn't count as training here. And you're basically wasting $30 a month per person. And they are not becoming more productive, they're wasting more time because they have no idea what to do with this. So there is a phenomenal opportunity, but we're looking at it entirely wrong, I think, often. I've come across this number, and that is basically the amount of days that we each have in average alive on the planet. It's a wonderful number, it's sort of a bit unrelatable, but I like the fact that somebody has bothered to actually count. For me, it feels like it's a lot of days, but it also feels like, makes it very clear that it is finite. And there's an organization called 29k.org that is working to create an environment and a platform to help people from their own self-management to become more beautiful people and help other people make the most of these 29 days. So you can check it out. It's a lot of cool research and a nice service. So the thing that is happening now, if you think back on that graph, how technology is steaming ahead, NVIDIA is a company that I had on my radar 3-4 years ago, and they have created more money than Germany last year. So when you're starting to compare companies to countries like Germany, it's kind of crazy. There's another company that's bigger than the Danish economy. So you kind of need to look at the economies now in parallel to these companies. And the CEO has basically now started not just creating agents that are smart and that can run workflows, so not tasks, but workflows. They're actually creating super AI agents that can manage teams of other agents. And that is basically reorganizing how work gets done in a digital twin universe. And I think it's super important that we find connective tissue between that trajectory and how we are working. And I'm basically imagining AI as a colleague. And you would never have a colleague that you don't bother to onboard, that you don't include in your culture, and then you hope that they magically do some, great work. But that's at the moment what we're trying to do, and then we are disappointed that the magic is only superficial. A couple of years ago, I made this slide where I was trying to think, we had this era of everything was becoming operationally tuned. That's the era of IKEA being fabulous. Then came digitization, and when I speak with leaders, I use that metaphor to say the value of AI is the same as the internet. It's about 7 trillion. So this will be a very similar animal. What can we learn from how we've done digital? And one of the really important starting points there is we don't delegate it. If you as a leader don't learn by example and you don't actually get into that yourself and just think it's somewhere in the organization where we can make some savings, but it doesn't bother me. So the first question that I always ask boards or management teams, what are you going to do with your 2 days? They look a little bit, what's he talking about now? It's like, well, technically everybody has now 2 days freed up and you can do something else. What would you do? CFO is a very replaceable job. Actually, a lot of things that can be much better for the organization if some of that is automated. So we need to start thinking about how do we want to rethink the whole construct of how we're creating value together. And I think it's important to do that not only for the public sector, but holistically. And if we tune into this humanizing idea, you could write humanizing with a capital A-I. A couple of years ago, there was a researcher basically said, humans are amazing at creativity, at empathy and compassion, and at critical thinking. Then I thought maybe I shouldn't have sent my kids to the German school. Now AI is actually better than humans at creativity and better than humans at compassion. We still have an edge on critical thinking. But to me, that is the whole wrong dialogue, because we're again trying to do the us and them, what are they better and what are we? I mean, already the whole language is wrong. So I'm trying to look at what are the capabilities that we have that make us unique humans that can be supercharged, superpowered, where we become actually superhumans. And I'm happy to share the slides, so you don't need to, feel free to take photos, but you can grab that later. And I won't go into all of the 5, but I'll just give you a bit of a flavor so that we can get back to the question. There are a couple of tools that are used in call centers now that help in real time an agent to understand what is going on, What is that person feeling and what can I do better? So real-time upskilling. That means not only that in the individual encounter the service and the experience is improved, it also means collectively you can actually have the right agent serving the right customer and you can share learnings in real time with each other. It's a total game changer in experience design. Have you ever seen a plane that the white stripes come out in the end? I always thought as a kid that that's the fumes that come out. Totally wrong. But interestingly, it's 35% of all the environmental impact from flying is in those white stripes because they disperse and they create a layer of blocking the sun. So they're actually worse than fumes, if you think about it that way. And a bunch of smart people at Google have found a way to use AI and weather data to anticipate where a plane should fly, either lower or higher, to prevent this crystallizing water. It's very easy to avoid, but you need to know how it is done. So here you can see a Delta running a pilot with pilots to eliminate those trails. And the point here is it is still human behavior where the impact is. So the AI is amazing. I mean, Google is doing some amazing stuff, but it is the pilot that needs to fly higher or lower. In this case, something they know how to do because if there's a storm, they do that anyway. So it's not difficult. Then you can ask yourself, maybe a webcam on the back of the plane would have been okay as well to see if there's white foam. But you can use AI if you want. Different question. But point is, humans should be in focus. And we will see this not only, we talk about white collar lean now as there is a change now coming into the offices that we've seen before in shop floors, in factories, in industrial work. That's very black and white, literally. I think we need to also see the opportunities end to end in our value chains because it's in chains where the biggest value is blocked. The chain of you having an accident going to hospital, the problem is in the waiting time, in the handovers. It's the same if you order a parcel with socks from Italy. It's in, that being in one container and being shuttled around. That's where all the stupid stuff is happening. So we need to understand flow in a new way. And I think for service design going forward, connecting human and AI and reimagining flows is the big opportunity. And of course, expectations will change. This is Meta's new AI assistant where you could have a celebrity baseballer to be your barbecue coach. You can basically choose the celebrity you like the most and then they can teach you about tax accounting or about cooking fresh pasta. It's remarkable and scarily beautiful. A lot of questions that will come from that, but it means whatever you're running, if you're a public authority and you're struggling in Berlin to even manage appointments, welcome to the real world. This is now what the new benchmark is, right? And I'm thinking about it as calibrating in these shifts. Where is it actually valuable to be useful and where, you had a similar model to that. Where is it valuable to be delightful? We don't have to be delightful all the time. But we need to really work with how expectations are changing. And these are the big three shifts that we've seen in our research now, that instead of seamless, we need to be instant. And that's not trivial with AI because there's always a lagging effect. Things have to go to a cloud and bounce around, so it's not as instant as it needs to be. Proactive is not good anymore. You need to anticipate before people want something. And that's actually easier than you think. We've talked about relevance in service design for a long time. Now it needs to be tailor-made. And sometimes people don't even know what they want. So quite an exciting era in front of us. And to breathe some life into that with a concrete example, you can imagine there's a lot of opportunity around health, connecting with food. And I was quite passionate about that a year and a half ago to look at, how do you empower people to live healthier lives? And I found a retailer that wanted to really create a step change in creating a coach that helps family live healthier. We then actually took a step back and said, who are we to say they want to live healthier? Maybe they want to have more affordable food that's fun for the kids. Maybe they want to focus on sustainability. So we kind of zoomed a little bit out to give people that choice. But then you can imagine a classic service design project. You look at the flow, you have a chatbot, you need to make the technology work. It's a lot about structuring that so everybody can come along, from the business unit to the people that need to fund it, have customers involved, all of the good stuff. But the interesting thing was that even if you design a beautiful coach, when you come home on Thursday, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that, and you're stressed, what the hell am I going to make for dinner tonight? That is the magic moment, and you do not solve that with the chatbot. Also on the bus, it's not always convenient to talk to a phone about your dinner plans. The magic is actually when that coach gets in touch Thursday morning and says, hey, I know it's Thursday today, I know what's going to happen, we can help. Here's 3 recipes, you didn't have them in a long time, everybody's going to love it. You know, your uncle's diet is considered, your kids' allergies are considered, it's going to be great. Do you want me to order for this or for this? And then the food is in the fridge, you get a video, you can do it with the kids, it's amazing, right? That's what we want. And you only get there if you get into a mode of reimagining and, you know, dare to think, how could the future be? And that's the idea I want to evangelize here. To give you an example from public sector, where of course it's not easy, I appreciate that. And staying with the food theme, there are a lot of cool companies that want to do innovative foods that are better for the planet, better for people, and so forth. But the government is not super fast in allowing for that to happen. The Swedish Agency for Growth has tried an experiment that I love because it went, instead of let's do an 18 months discovery journey, they went, can we take 4 of these companies and hack this, but not only sort of do a quick, we can do cool stuff in the weekend, but actually go on a journey with them and try to go into the weeds of the difficult stuff, but only for 4 of them. And they created these 2 councils. One is the expert council. So the company that wants to innovate food, they get a coach or a curator, let's say. They convene that group of experts that can often solve that problem because you have people from all the agencies that are relevant in one place, and you have somebody that can help weave that together. And if they can't solve it, it automatically goes into a second loop where the policy is rewritten to make sure that problem does never occur again. Which I think, I mean, it's a similar principle you have in other solutions to kind of make sure when things repeat, you take care of that in a different process. And they've been phenomenally successful. So one of the CEOs said, if this would have existed when we started out, we would have saved 3 years. So imagine the sort of acceleration of healthy, sustainable food that you can create if you can get that delta in speed. And it's a very scalable formula. But the formula is not, let's have 2 experts groups. The formula is exactly what you are doing. Engage people in a living lab where you learn collectively and you improve the policy as your playbook. So policy doesn't become the artifact from the past that, you know, stacks us up for the future, but it actually becomes the operating system that gets an update faster than your Tesla and is up to date all the time. Another cool example, when we talk about AI, a lot of people say, yeah, but in public sector it doesn't work. This is 2 guys in 6 months developing something that works in hospitals in Sweden. It transcribes all the doctor meetings. It saves 2 patient meetings a day, so they can see 2 patients per day, which is, if you're an expensive doctor, quite meaningful. But also, they can spend quality time with their patients. They don't need to type. They can have the conversation. Afterwards, they check it. It has all the medical codes already imported and is published, and the note is done. It even does all the referrals automatically. The only expenditure that they had was an office chair. That's it. So now there are 5 people. They're scaling it up. I mean, just to give you a flavor of the kind of things that are possible. I'm not saying it's not challenging. They're extremely smart. So there are these kind of bottlenecks, but it just shows what is possible. And I think if we connect those dots, it's amazing. So connecting the dots, another example that I love is the Swedish policy lab. It's called Samhällsnytta, which means value for society. And their business is a bit similar to what you showed earlier, kind of creating arenas where that kind of collaboration, where policy writing meets local action, and Sweden is organized in counties and regions and sub-regions, so kind of curating all the right players to be involved. It is very much the diagram that you had, you know, the matrix. And they're having some phenomenal success with that. And the coolest thing is it's sticky. So, I mean, you talked about training the trainer. It's almost like converting the evangelist. Because everybody that is involved sees this is not just about the tools, this is a whole way of operating and a way of building trust with each other and getting real with, you know, who are we actually here to serve? And if you have citizens writing the policy and policy people doing the prototypes, something magical happens and this sort of magic energy connects. So I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. It's never been more exciting to be in service design. It's never been more exciting to be in Kuldiga. And I really think this place, in its remoteness, has a lot of magic, because it means people that come here have bothered to come here, even if it's virtual, that counts. So I believe this kind of thing is really crucial for us to take this next era on. I do think this will take time, 10, 15 years maybe. That's why I think this sort of metaphor to the digitization is quite relevant. And if you go back to my grandparents, you know, the light bulb was invented, the power station was invented, but it was still a long time until we had electric cars. Maybe we can do it smarter and faster this time. Maybe we have learned something from that, but it's not going to be fast. But I think I spoke to an old friend yesterday, and we did some work for the Ministry of Health in Saudi Arabia more than a decade ago. And he told me that, you know, he still remembers that I said to make a big change doesn't always need big intervention. Even if you have a Fitbit, you get nudges that help you do the right things regularly. So I'm not saying everything has to be unfathomable, complicated. You can do small things. So I think Bill Gates' quote to me always resonates, that there are things we can do today, tomorrow, but we need to be realistic that we are in a marathon mode. When McKinsey Global Institute looked at how Gen AI has now changed the speed of automation, they basically found it's moved 10 years forward. So the previous predictions were a little bit further back. Now the midpoint, where 50% of all tasks that humans do can be automated at superior level, is 2045. And 50% is a lot. That means 50% of all the stuff we do today can be done better than we do it with AI. But then remember my point, this is not about, oh shit, now 50% will be done by the robots. I'm saying, fantastic, if we team up with AI, we can actually do a lot less boring stuff and focus on what matters. So go back to the doctors, instead of filling in these stupid notes, engage in the conversation, be a doctor, do what you enjoy, have value, feed things that can promote shared learning and upskilling. So there are phenomenal opportunities, but we need to dare to fundamentally reimagine some of the things, like, why do I want to work 5 days a week? And it's not easy. I tried this experiment since summer. I worked 3 days a week. Out of the 15 things of my list that I was supposed to do, I've maybe done 2. One was badminton, and now I've broken my knee. So I can, at the bar later, tell you the learnings from that experiment. But I think embarking on this eyes wide open, heart wide open together is going to be phenomenal. And if we find foggy, ubiquitous uncertainty in front of us, it's quite easy to, you know, think back and be overwhelmed. I think it is forums like this that help us to re-energize, help each other, and embrace that being adaptable, being on our feet, learning together, that's what it's all about. And it's really fun. I do believe that inclusive design is the most important thing to make sure this is better for everyone. And we've all seen great examples that designing for the few can make things amazing for the many. IKEA is an amazing example of a company that has really paved the way for that. So let's get inspired from examples and help each other think about the people that are not in the room, bring the perspectives that are not obvious. And then, very practically, instead of trying to predict the future, anticipate what future we would actually like to have and see, could we not make that happen? What would that take? Involve people like the examples that we've seen earlier, so that we're not designing for citizens, but actually with them. And take that sort of adventurous step of really reimagining, because that's where service design is at its best. If we think holistic, we dare to actually prototype with people, we know that that's where the magic happens. Now we have just more in our magic toolbox. And when I meet companies that have embarked on this and they reflect, the consistent learning for them is get started, don't overthink it, play around a bit, learn, but getting started is the most important thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Stefan? Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the excellent presentation. As you know, probably you will have a good answer for it, but how do you see the privacy issues in all these, in the development towards these more from proactive to, what's the word? Proactive to...
How I see the prioritization?
No, privacy question.
Privacy.
Yeah.
So if you think about it from an inclusive perspective, the most important thing is to acknowledge not everybody has the same views. And the problem is not actually so much, letting people down is a problem, but it comes back to expectation management. Because if you look at Facebook, a lot of people have given consent to things they had no idea. They paid that price for convenience, right? It was so exciting to join whatever that is, photo swap, that then you don't worry about privacy. And you have similar things with insurance, with how many people have a will. So they're annoying things we don't like to think about, and then we choose the shiny fun stuff instead. As a company, you obviously have a responsibility to take care of everything, and if you don't have a clue how these black boxes work, and you have a governance which in Europe is probably actually quite good, not as fast as it could be, but actually fast and good, but there is no good law yet. So you're in a bit of a limbo, and then you can choose, okay, let's wait this out until there is proper laws and I don't go to prison for stuff that I didn't even understand. And CEOs are scared about that, because it's not often that you need to think about going to prison. Most people don't, even though we sometimes think business people are greedy, most people in the business world I know are not entering the race to do the wrong things. So I think design's opportunity here is to help people understand what is really important and form their views and give them a chance to navigate this ethically and sort of on their terms, but also give companies a chance to simplify things and cut the excuses from the real risks. Because honestly, the value that we can create if we do this well is so disproportionately big that even if somebody gets hurt in the big picture, it really doesn't stack up in any way. But that doesn't mean we should just go for everything because it's going to be great. And I think that's going to be tricky. And again, looking at digital GDPR, there are a lot of lessons we can learn. What has worked well, what has not worked so well. And maybe there is a really interesting project out here to apply a design process to how to navigate that. I haven't seen a good example for that, but I know that everybody is working hard to solve that. So it's a great design opportunity, is the short answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Here.
Thank you, Stefan, for the presentation. Wow. I already was a fan of AI before, now even more after you spoke. I was wondering, in your opinion, how education will benefit from the different tools? Because we are now in between the process that we are studying, but maybe we ask some help for ChatGPT in some things, but how this is going to shift the way we learn about different topics?
My hope is that it will democratize learning at scale. I'm shocked how many smart people I meet that haven't really bothered to try. And I'm trying to understand why is that, right? So it comes back to curiosity, to humbleness. And I can tell you in the average boardroom, you need to create a very cozy atmosphere for somebody to start admitting that they don't really understand. And I think that is the starting point, that sort of humility of saying, well, actually, I don't really understand. What happens in education is that people get disappointed sort of 2 minutes in. They try something and it feels so magical that they're blown away for a moment. They take a deep breath and then it can't do what they wanted to do. So we need a little bit of patience as well to go beyond prompt writing and actually understand how our learning process can change now that we have these friends. I saw one example that somebody had made a GPT for their kids. The kid was a footballer, which I can relate to very much from my youngest son. And he's basically told the GPT to be a math expert that can speak in football analogies. So now this kid is learning math through football, which is innovative. And then the question is, okay, what hole do you go down on and what is going to happen? But I think at the moment there is very little productive discourse in allowing parents and teachers and kids to come together to take this on. And I think that's the way I would look at that, because if teachers are trying to fight with their headmaster to have some cool tool, that's not going to, it's going to be hit and miss. Parents have no clue, and kids just want to play. But if you put the three together, it could actually be fantastic. And I think we need to learn as a society. It's not only each of us needs to learn how to learn again. There are so many opportunities to, I've seen a lot of news now that people, just yesterday, there's a German billionaire that is creating a digital twin because he's going to die soon. So he is doing interviews with himself to leave his wisdom as a legacy for other people. There's an exhibition in the US where they've done a lot of interviews with war veterans, and they've created digital twin avatars of war veterans that you can actually have a conversation with. And I think those things is where it gets really interesting, where knowledge transcends boundaries that we've had so far. But we need to learn how to learn how to learn.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned inclusive design is key. And of course, designing for the full range of human diversities in ability, culture, language is very important. And I think it resonates with a lot of us studying at SDSI. And you mentioned IKEA as a very good example of that. But when it comes to the government, what do you think about that? I find that inclusive design usually is not necessarily what the government wants to achieve. And it's a bit of an oxymoron because you're trying to design for the majority. Do you have any use cases or examples of governments that have done a good job in practicing inclusive design?
Yeah. I mean, the one that I found recently, or not recently, but very cool, is the Canadian government actually building the government in proportion to the population. It's because it's iconic, right? The government that I admire a lot for that is Singapore. They have basically said, we don't want to be a smart government, we want to be a lovable government. And we want to be a lovable, kind of proactive government. You know, we don't want citizens to come to us and say, now I need a passport. We want to know that a child is born, it will need a passport. Wow. And does a mom with a young newborn baby need to travel across the city? Or could we organize ourselves in a way that is actually people-centric? So they've made some amazing progress with that. And Singapore is a very special place because I've never met that combination of being KPI-oriented in the most of human endeavors. So I think Singapore is very cool, and they've done some great progress.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for.
Thank you.
For your... Next, we have our next speaker, Antti Orlik. Welcome.
1, 2, 3. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for putting up such a, I would say, inspiring afternoon. The topics in the public service are somewhat difficult, I think. I've heard that there's sort of issues in the public domain that might not necessarily come out when you're doing in the private sector. And I think you need to find some new ways to do things. I'd like to start first of saying that thanks for providing this carpet. This reminds me of a legendary guitar player, Eric Clapton, who never wants to play without his favorite rug or carpet on the place. So I hope this is exactly why you did it. Or it might be also for the acoustics. I'm not sure. Anyway, I wanted to put this two sides of me here because I do my daily job in AMOL, which is really a for-profit consultancy. Yeah, we don't do non-profit at all. But the Infrugal is an association that I co-founded just over 10 years ago, which is a non-profit. And there is a reason that that happened. And sometimes I feel when I'm speaking, I really need to give a little of the background of myself so that you can understand where my thinking might come from. Now, this little map here shows where I've been and run and established my businesses, not bases that I've worked, but actually I've fought through the authorities and the red tape to establish those businesses. The first star there is in Finland, the most clever of you who know the geographics. I'm brought up by a single mother in the eastern side of Helsinki, not the most glorious places in the world. Fairly rough and tough place. But I have since lived in London, which I consider to be one of the most backwards countries when it comes to the functioning of a society. But it's doing still great. It has a lot of red tape that you might not experience. You move in there and you think, well, I moved back 100 years. Nothing's been renewed. Everything is tradition. However, then I've worked and had an office in San Francisco, and the way they think in that place, in my mind, is astonishing, actually. I mean, it used to be just a place where after the war they were thinking, where the hell would we put all these scientists? So let's bury them somewhere there in the Silicon Valley and let's see if they can do something useful. And then suddenly you started to have a lot of money in there, and then they have this sort of full rotating machine which is creating more and more things for us, right? I've been in Amsterdam, I've been in China. China is a very interesting place, we all know. AI was here tapped on just by the previous speaker. It's interesting, you can be I have a friend who is living in Hong Kong, wanted to buy a car in mainland China, wants to put a navigation on, wants to go to McDonald's, and the car said, why don't you try the domestic instead? That you have your AI there, okay? So a lot of things happening there. Singapore was mentioned here. It's a corporation called a country, in many opinion, but it's functioning really well. But my experience, actually, most profound experience came from India. I've lived and worked there, had my company there over 7 years. And it made me think completely differently. Now, if I would ask any of these places where I've been before, how would you design a place where people could keep their food fresh without having access to any electricity? No solar panel, nothing. Because even if you could have solar, they could not afford it, right? How would you do that? And I don't think I would have found that answer in Silicon Valley. I might have found a really good application of some sort of a, I don't know, cool sharing app of some sort, or in London, or into that matter in China either. But that solution was created in India. So that became what I called the frugal innovation. The first time I actually came across to that terminology was just over 10 years ago in India. And that sort of created the need, for me at least, to find a way to promote that idea for in the places where I came from. A little add on this, part of my job in India was also to help Western, so-called Western companies to establish their operations in India. It always goes well until they have to say how much this service or product costs. And the Indian owner says, well, that's great, but we can't have that. Could you have it just 20% of that price? It always is 5 times difference. Because that's the reality. So you have to create into the reality. So I'd like to bring to you all in this audience the idea that whenever you imagine that something needs to be more affordably, don't take 20%. That's nothing. Try to come up with an idea that costs only 1/5 of what you're currently doing. And then you are somewhere in this frugal innovation zone. I know it's nearly impossible in most of the cases, but it's very useful thought experience. Instead of having 1 million, have a 200,000, and so on. Now, this on your, I guess on your left, is a mythical refrigerator based on physics. When water drips down, it evaporates. And heat transform is happening so that the cooling goes inside and the water evaporates outside. Now, it wasn't a scientist who came up with this idea. It was a guy who made clay pots because he understands the trade. So frugal innovation, what is it? It's a process of developing affordable, efficient, and high-quality solutions, and you optimize your resources. And in many cases, it is tailored for so-called underserved or emerging markets. Now, I also asked DAL-E what frugal innovation, and it came up with this mess. And, well, that's AI for you guys. Yeah, it's true as well. I mean, you could do that. There's diverse teams. There are many different type of tools you can use, but that's not really what we are saying here. If you want to put frugal innovation in some sort of a theoretical context, it is just a thought process within all of these. Whether it's in circular economy or whether it's AI for social good, whether you want to create an inclusive and social innovation or sharing economy, grassroots innovation, or make a movement, it's also there in the middle. This thought of, do we really need all this money to do this? Is this really the only way of doing it? Is there a way to completely re-engineering our thoughts? Not just hone some costs away, but rethink, is this really necessary what we're doing? Are we doing the right things? Is it delivering what it exactly needs to do? Or do we have baggage that nobody needs, but it's still there because we don't know how to take it away? This, to me, is India, and for many people, this is India. You know, that's also AI describing the picture. Well, it's fairly close. Could be anywhere in this vast and diverse country. And I think people, when they look at these type of images, they say, yeah, that would be cool. I'd like to go some trekking there and, you know, experience something and whatever. But you would also experience a lot of poverty. You would experience a lot of other things that are not so exotic, but they are still part of the nation, as is this. I used to live there. That's Gurugram or Gurgaon. It's a sort of a city just beside New Delhi. And my AI doesn't really make that big difference. It has still the same problems in there, right? And I wanted to find something as an example from these frugal innovations is really massive in scale. I just showed you this little refrigerator. So it's cute. It's also doing a really good job. But what if we take a massive size of a problem, bigger than Europe and US put together? We'll take the whole India. Take a big problem. Let's take about 300 million plus unbanked people, right? Illiteracy, to the same noun. Corruption. Leakage, as it's called. Whenever the cash money flows from the government to the citizens, it leaks somewhere, right? 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion people, which is even unimaginable for us. You know, it's like 1,000 Estonias put together. That's pretty close, I think. So there was one guy who thought, okay, what is needed if we want to move this country to something completely different, something which is modern? And he wrote at the end of 2008, his name is Nandan Nilekani, you might know him, you might have heard of him. He is the man who co-founded Infosys. It's a multi-billion company, much bigger than its reputation because it's not American. I'm being just blunt here. And he's also the man behind Aadhaar. You know, it could be a good one. I don't know how many of you actually, you're not in there, how many of you actually know what that is? What is Aadhaar? Do you believe this? Do you believe this, that we have an audience, you've not ever heard of the world's biggest database of people having their irises, their fingerprints, their numbers, and you've never heard of it? You know, all the Airbnbs and cute little apps, which are nice, but this is nation-changing stuff. And nobody's heard about it. Well, anyway, this book, published in 2008, at the end of it, was then called the outgoing government at that time, Congress Party government, and they liked the idea. And they said, why don't you come in? You're a founder of Infosys. Why don't you join the government and really implement this? They said, okay, but I want to keep the team small, he said. I don't want to put it in New Delhi. It's full of bureaucrats. I don't want to be there. I want to put my team in Bangalore because there's the IT. I want to take the best brains from the private sector as well, from Google and all the other people. And then lastly, I want to report to the Prime Minister. None of the middle people there, none of them, which is very clever. And I was just thinking of all of you guys when you're talking about the public sector. The higher you can go in reporting, the better chances you have. That's really one of the learnings here, I felt. What happened? 2009, that's what he was appointed. And this is what Aadhaar is. It's a 12-digit random number assigned to a person. And then it uses fingerprints, iris scans, and photographs to secure a reliable transaction and identifications. It also did a lot of other stuff. And I'll just make a summary slide. 15 years, just imagine, 15 years, not even that. In 15 years, 99% of the population has Aadhaar. I moved out of India at that point that I didn't have to link my other information with Aadhaar card. 99%, that's a workforce. Over 100 billion authentications. It's a number is unimaginable. 10 billion electric your customer verifications, because you know if you want to have a phone, mobile contract, you do the Aadhaar. And the one thing which I find interesting, and this to me is frugality, is the savings. This paid more than this whole project. And these savings, when you have this public distribution system where government gives money for people who would need it, you used to have a lot of so-called leakage, a lot of middlemen taking money in there. Now it goes directly to their bank account. And this all happened in 15 years. And I find this as a frugal innovation in a scale of massive scale. Yeah, you could say there's a lot of issues here. It's not a perfect system. I'm not saying that. But think about the scale. You know, think about the 1.3 billion people. And you move one country in 15 years from mostly being cash-based society into being a banked society. And you have these hundreds of millions of people joining the banking. So for me, this was something transformational. And if you want to read a book, How the Government Should Be by Jaideep Prabhu, who is a professor in Cambridge, Judge Business Schools, I really strongly suggest you do that. It's a really good book. He's also our advisor in InnoFrugal. Now, a few things. Frugal innovation and governance. I've sort of looked at it in three places. I mean, you could do it in millions of different ways. I look at it from the technologies point of view. I look at it from the how to innovate point of view. You guys are experts here. And then, of course, the resource management point of view, which is really crucial in most of the public things. You don't really have excessive budgets. That's for sure. If I first look at the technologies, these are technologies that we have received in the past 20 years. We have smartphones, social media platform, messaging apps, video conferencing tool, 5G networks, blah, blah, blah. You can all read. 5G networks is much bigger deal than we understand. That is really the key for a lot of things, because it's one thing to have an information, but it's another thing to actually be able to transmit that. And combined now with AI and 5G, we haven't seen anything yet. So they, for example, they have ports in China with no persons, none whatever, not a single person working in there, fully automated with 5G and AI. Containers. Container ships comes in, containers are removed, they are stored, and nobody touches them. That's what 5G and AI can do. Now, there are many ways to innovate, and I'm not going to go to this because I'm talking to experts here. But there's just so many ways to innovate. So that's another issue that you might want to look when you're doing frugal things in public sector. Is there a better way to innovate? Is there a cheaper way to do this? And then the third one is, how do we manage our resources? And you know, obviously you have all these public-private partnerships that you could do, agile processes. We've had these sprints here and others, which have been used really, really well. Decentralization also touched here. Local innovation also touched here in some of these examples we've seen. Crowdsourcing getting a bit more difficult. And then there's this open innovation and citizen engagement. This is terribly difficult. So in Horizon 2020 program, they had this grant, which was frugal innovation by citizens for citizens. And we were part of it as an InnoFrugal. There were two entities from Finland. VTT is the same, that's Finnish Science Technology Administration. Fraunhofer, which needs to be doing a lot of work, also familiar for many of you. A behavioral scientist team from UK, Agorize in France, Helios from Austria, and BHS from Turkey. And these two, BHS and Helios, they were so-called industry partners. The purpose of this exercise was to see, is it possible to get normal citizens actually to participate in ideation? And it's not easy, that I can tell you. This program is for 5 years or 4 years. We're just starting the second challenge this June, that is tomorrow. And then at the end of this year, early next year, we consolidate the findings. I'm not going to bore you very much with this because I don't have that many results, but I can tell you what's really been difficult because I think it's always more helpful. How do you excite people? I mean, come on, try to come on board and innovate. You guys, you know it, you must know it. You're seeing them, you're face to face with them. How do we actually get people to be excited when they're not even excited to vote, right? So we had 2 challenges. One was in the application area. It was like kitchen things. You know, it could be sorting your trash or having a new sort of a dishwasher or whatever. Target countries were Turkey, Germany, and India. And the target consumer groups we had were sort of troubled families. So this was social aspect in here. Green minimalists also, and independent senior citizens. And the second challenge changed because one of our industry partners went bankrupt. Unfortunately, it was a startup, Helios, from Austria. They didn't survive it. It happens. So we got new partners in, and the challenge changed a bit, and it's now going to be in hotel, travel, and outdoor experiences. And the countries we're looking is Germany, India, and Colombia. And we have somewhat different target audiences. Again, eco-conscious business and leisure travelers, senior citizens, LGBTQI plus community, hotel staff which focus on operations, reception, housekeeping, and female workers. So again, somewhat, not say main audience, somewhat different audiences. And that's going to be quite exciting. I'm going to share just something what's been happening. So this was when we started this. We thought, okay, they get support from chat buddies and mentors and industry coaches and facilitators. There's nothing groundbreaking here. Best ideas in to get market introduction and scaling help and so on and so forth. So there's a sort of pathway if you come out really with a good idea. Some web pages created, fairly boring, I'm sorry to say, but that's governments for you. Yeah. Challenge process, there's nothing new for you guys here. You have your Philips challenge, you're participating in it, you know how it goes, what is there. But what was interesting here is this. This is what I find exciting stuff, because this is disruptive. So instead of just letting this roll, we put sort of like a little agent in here. So we incorporate 2 ways of facilitate. So we create a sort of standard process, and then we have these behavioral scientists say, but what if we make this chatbot behave like this? What if this and that happen? Can we actually increase the number of good validated ideas? Because this, if we can scale this, this is big. So there are 2 things I find in these type of projects really crucial. One, how do you recruit? And secondly, how do you manage? If we can improve both, then of course we can have much better results. Now, this is what happened. I mean, it's going as planned, but for me that's okay results. I think we're still lagging behind these registrations. So in this first challenge, that's what we had. We had 111 participants in 56 teams, and then submissions actually were given by 27 teams and 64 participants. Round 2, you know how it goes. You take it, oh, these were all very nice but not good. And then round 3, these are really good, we should do something with that. And this is how it went. We got round 1, the biggest entrance came from India. Why? Because we had face-to-face meetings. Easy. That's what it happens. Nothing beats that. And then round 2, we still had 16 Indians in there, and in round 3, none. Okay. It just shows that quality doesn't always bring quality. Quantity doesn't always bring quality. I was judging them. They were quite good ideas, really, really good ideas. And I was quite surprised because these are not experts. These are normal citizens. Just saying, okay, why not? Why not give it a thought? Second challenge is here. I'm not going to go into that details because I'm sort of at the end of my presentation with time-wise as well. It has the similar things. I'm expecting this challenge, this second challenge, to actually bring a bit more newer ideas because it is more sort of softer. It doesn't need engineering skills or any of that sort to think about things. And finally, I'd like to share a thought with you guys about frugality. This is really what I'd like you to take away from my presentation. Frugality is one of the most beautiful and joyous words in the language, and yet one that we are culturally so cut off from understanding and enjoying. We live in the world of opulence here. We have more resources than you can imagine. Go somewhere else in the world, and then you look back at us here and say, what are you whining? You have more than you need. You have 10 times more than you need. So we tend to do things too perfectly. And I shared the last example, which is excavation machines are entrepreneurs in India. Somebody who owns an excavation machine is a one-man company. They had two problems. They couldn't get money to buy the equipment. Secondly, the equipment was very expensive. The money was, JCP is a very big company nowadays in India. They solved this banking problem. Just went to every bank and said, okay, if a person buys our machine, we guarantee it. Done. Secondly, they started to export JCP to India. And then people started to complain. They said, why do you have air conditioning? I said, because it's hot in India. It's not plus 50 somewhere in India today. So that's why we have it. No, I don't want to have it. What? No, I don't want to have it. Why not? It uses diesel. It costs more, and then I have to pay for it. No, you can take it away. This is frugal thinking. It takes away from my bottom line. And that's the way we should approach these things. Never, ever, you should try to have only everything included because you only need 20% of something. And I think it goes to the services as well. So if I haven't said anything else, I'd like you to think, how can I make this so that it's 5 times cheaper? Because that's an impossible challenge that can be solved. Okay, that's about it. Frugality, I think now it's your turn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ati, for your talk. But before we move with the Q&A, we noticed that we have people online. Hello. And they have a very good question from the previous speaker.
Okay.
But before we move to that, if you have any questions, and also people online, type in any question if you have for Ati right now. And let's begin with the Q&A for you.
Okay, any questions, anybody?
I do have a few questions. First of all, for those of you who didn't figure out why this room doesn't have a proper condition working, this is because of reality.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have questions. Is it working? Okay, thank you. So the first question is a technical one. Out of those ideas in your project, what is happening with them afterwards? So you select, you ideate with citizens.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what is the next thing you do with them?
With these challenges, yeah.
Yeah,
so the industry partners we choose, and they pledge that they will, at least one of the winners will get sort of market exposure. If there are several good ideas, they will then introduce them. They will be also providing coaching, but at least one of the best ideas will get market exposure. So it gets prototyped, it gets tested, and it goes to the market.
Okay, so there is some continuation of that.
That's what they have to pledge when they join the program.
All right. And the other question is more kind of, I adore the concept of instead of doing right things, instead of doing things right, doing the right things, which is basically what you started with. But and you're also, in your experience, you're from investment community, both raising money and funding projects. And how, maybe a silly question, but how can you make the funding bodies of innovation, aka investors, thinking the way in terms of doing right things, not doing things right? Because they have a time spans which are not necessarily matching those ambitions of changing the world. Thank you.
Okay, well, there's always a mismatch sometimes between, or there can be a mismatch between the investors and what the startups want to do, especially when you go to social impact or environmental impact. This starts to become, I think, a real issue. So I would always say to if this is a question for the startup people to say, you have to put it in the article of association. It has to be embedded in the core of the company, that when you get your financing, it actually stays like that. So if we want to do social good, we're doing social good. We're not starting to say, oh, well, we could make more money there. You know, if that's the reason that the startup has established itself, that's one thing, I think. This sort of, but investors are actually quite frugal when they think about it. I mean, I work quite a lot with the technology companies, and there I can see that there's so many times that we just over-engineer. We just try to make it too good. And I think here there have been many examples, and I think that's frugality, especially I look at the Berlin and why not also Porto, thinks that there was this frugal, without having ample resources, you could actually still get very good insights. And with good insights, you can start developing some relevant services which don't have all the bells and whistles in there. And I think, as your service design process teaches you, the inside is really the key here. It is the key here. And the inside, even in this mythical, is the inside. You know, I need to keep my cucumbers and my tomatoes and everything, I need to keep them fresh because they go really quickly. Especially in the monsoon season in India, they're rotten very quickly. So I need to have a place where to keep them. But how do you do when you're not in a grid? I mean, there's loads of villages in India that have a grid still. How do you do that? So I think it's just bearing in mind that inside, that what's the need and how can we fulfill that? It's not easy. This frugal thinking is by far, I think, especially in Europe, is very difficult. We were approached by the European Commission of trying to help them to understand the concept of frugality because we don't have enough money to take care of our old people. That's the end of the story. You look at any European countries, we don't have money to do that. So we need to figure out ways to do that. And there's a lot of thinking with the young generation that you guys are doing already on that. And that's the sort of frugal thinking. Can we engage other people? Do we really need to build all this? Is there a way we can have them taken care at home, and so on and so forth? So frugality is it's not a method in per se. It's a mindset. So put that mindset into the method that you've been taught and you know, and then you can start to get results. That would be my saying. Any other questions? It's been a hot day.
Another question?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure here.
Okay, well, the next question goes to Stefan from Brian, and it says, there is probably always a skill gap for service designers. It is hard to keep up with the speed of change between what they are learning and practicing today versus what they need to take advantage of the future. What skills do you see as most important for service designers to develop?
Thank you, thank you. Brian always comes with the tough questions. Thank you for the frugal injection, by the way. Maybe frugality is one of the things that we should all reflect on. I think for me, it's almost like how can you get people to be excited that frugal is better than what they had before? And I think a lot of that has to do with engagement. And it changes a little bit the role that we have as service designers. I think the last decade, a lot of service design was very focused on us owning the process, because naturally, if you have so much uncertainty in every new quest and you don't know about every organization that you're facilitating with, he can't be possibly the expert of everything, so you become the expert of the process. And I think there are a couple of things where, in terms of how we do research, we need to freshen up how qual and quant work together, using AI to predict things instead of measure in a survey from last week and so on. So there are those kind of things where I think design fiction and futuring, that's an area that every service designer should get much more savvy on. And we should work a lot more with that. But I think, you know, in the past, we've always talked about a T-shaped person, that you should be quite broad, but then be really good at something. I wonder whether we should think about more A-shaped people that have actually two legs and can connect things on different levels. Because I think the kind of challenges that we're talking about, we need to dare not only to speak government or top management, we need to actually be comfortable to be more than at the table. We need to take more leadership. And there are very few organizations that have designers actually in leadership positions. So I'm hoping in the next decade that will change. There are a few really fabulous design leaders out there, and I think some of those folks should have more, like Martin that we talked about earlier, have kind of public serving roles. So for people that are really good at service design and want to sort of refresh is kind of one question, and sometimes a bit overwhelming. You know, you've come around now to master one toolbox and now you should reinvent it. But I think it's equally important to not forget what design and service design was great in the beginning. So we don't just run after some shiny new trends. I mean, somebody said earlier, empathy is the most important. I still believe that is one of the crucial things that we should also not forget about. We can do it in fancy ways. For example, you can build a virtual version of a persona, right? You feed in all of your research and you can talk to the customer in every meeting. It's fantastic. Like synthetic personas, fantastic tool. But let's not get carried away just because we can and forget, you know, what was really important in the first place. So my suggestion to Brian's question is a little bit on the methods that you're passionate about and what you love. Try to sort of find what's the new shiny things in that. Remember what got you passionate about service design in the first place and sort of rekindle that. And try to get out of your head in only focusing on the process and dare to be actually in a leadership role, in a content role, which is a bit uncomfortable, but you know, it's good for us to also try on what it's like to be in an uncertain situation. Hope that helps. But good question.
Thank you again, Stefan. And well, we're almost done, I swear. Just one more presentation. How's your energy level? 1 to 10? Yeah, approval? Okay. Well, now it's up to us, the students, to tell you a little bit about our stories here as SDSI students. Energy. So here is our story at the beginning. As you know, we're students from all over the world, all around the globe. And well, 1 year ago exactly, I was still living in the capital of my country, Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City. And you know, it was very busy, it was very loud, only around 8 million people, I'll say, only. And then I knew I had to come here to Kuldiga, a place called Latvia. So after several flights, missed luggage, I nearly missed the bus. I arrived to Kuldiga on September 8th, and my very first impression was silence, quiet. Like, what is this place? It was very magical for me. It looks like a fairy tale. Everything is like stuck in time. And even as I was walking, I saw this carriage and the horses, and like, what is happening? Did I time travel? But no, it was lovely, this very first impression. And days later, before arriving, that's our way to our home. We're neighbors, by the way. I received this message from a girl from Portugal. And we talked a little bit, what time are you arriving? We were arriving on the same day, and she told me she was bringing 3 pieces of luggage with her, and I was like, yeah, I can help you, let me know, like, whatever, right? And I arrived first that day, and then I realized we have these very narrow stairs. So I was like, okay, I do need to get you somewhere. So that's how we met, in the middle of the road at like 10 p.m. I saw this girl with 3 luggages and a hanging rack. Yeah, so I was like, hi, yeah, we need to go. And of course, this is how our friendship began, out of a bond of necessity. And yeah, that's us after all these years. And when I met Carolina, well, she does not only speaks Portuguese and English, but also French and Spanish, and now Latvian. So, wow. And as we were struggling with her luggages around our apartment, we met our neighbor that also speaks Spanish. And then I soon realized that not only us and the Latinos here, but also Tim from Germany, Mira from Finland, speak Spanish, Gina from Italy. So I was not going to miss my native language after all. So yeah, it was a very nice surprise. And yeah, to continue.
Wait, we can change. Okay, thank you. So indeed, our friendship started in this very crazy way, with Marcela helping me, and I'm still very grateful until today for that help, so thanks again. And then, the days after, we started to meet our colleagues, and this is us in the first vibes in September near the river. As you can see, this is when we collected so many different nationalities. This is one photo. I'm still impressed by the power of these master studies, that we can make this happen here in Latvia, in a little city, and it's been an amazing journey. Then we continue, and Linda, where are you? Here you are. Thanks for organizing this amazing first lunch together. As you can see, this was a moment where we started to have actually meetings and talking to each other and getting to know each other even before the classes started. So thanks to our Latvian students that could organize this, we started to bond a lot. And believe me, this happens in a very fascinating way when you're in a smaller setup, and we can make things happen here, indeed. Where is Cesar? Okay, he's in the back. Even brought a drone, and we went to the river together, and this is what we came up with. This amazing view of the river here that we wanted to share with you.
With the widest waterfall in Europe, by the way.
Yes. And yeah, so a lot of good moments started in September, and then indeed we started to go deeper and deeper, and even our neighbor invited us for lunch here, and we started even to connect with the animals that live in the same building. So this started to be very personal, like we started to make really interesting connections together. And then the classes started. And this is when you see the whole group back here all together, and you were still a bit anxious, but we get to know each other, and it was really the good start.
Well, that's our first party. As Cara mentioned, we are not only service designers, but also event planners. So we have an excuse for every type of event. That was Gina's birthday there. That was Amina's bridal shower, Christmas party. So seriously, all type of events were organized by all of us. It's been very fun. And another birthday, I think, yes, well, multiple parties all around. And
yeah, actually then as Kuldiga is small setup, we were, again, fortunate to have the Latvians with us that could actually drive us to Riga. So let's see the capital, let's see what's up there. So we did this a lot. So thanks again to all the Latvian colleagues for bringing us there. Elena, Yanis, all the good drivers. So we've been seeing from the snow to now all the green through the roads of Latvia. Then indeed, we arrived to our academy. So we were a bit like, but we belong to the art academy. Let's go and see it. So indeed, we got a group together and we both were together again and we met this and we could celebrate again Christmas in the capital. Yeah, well, other type of activities happened. So for me, for example, it was the first time ice skating. I never had done this before, so I was putting also myself in different setups, and we needed a very serious family photo, as you can see from this one. Yeah, we should get a frame for this, for sure. And then, last but not least, Ilse's suggestions to go to the academy for the Halloween. We enjoyed a lot.
Carnival,
sorry, yeah. So we enjoyed a lot, so thanks for bringing this. We had a lot of fun, as you can see. And we ended up having this great friendship. We traveled to Stockholm, this is starting, so we want to use this as also to the students watching us from home coming in September, that you will really bond with your colleagues. Like if you really get to know them, to create these connections, you can do really whatever. So it's not just about being colleagues, but also the friendship level, and we were speaking also about the empathy level. If we can do this as friends, we can do this as service designers as well, and bring these two perspectives at the same time. And yeah, next coming Porto. She's gonna visit me. So what's gonna be next? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a second part of the story. Yes, and that's the story of the White House. Who is the White House? What is the White House? Huh? Oh, it's there. That's the White House. That's us. That's the 6 of us. All of us are here. And yeah, that's Juli, Gina, Emily, Tim, Lynn, and me, Agatha. How did we meet? We arrived in this funny little city, being a bit confused at start, but we met at the White House. That's where we live. And we became a family. We studied together. In the beginning, studying was maybe a bit scary, the first classes, the start of school. But yeah, we survived this difficult winter together. And yes, we bonded. We definitely became a family. I think I'm clicking to the right thing, to the wrong thing. Yeah. We spent some family time together. We invited others as well. White House became the hub for us, where we spent some of the most important, let's say, events and parties. But we also, as Marcela and Karina mentioned, we are a bit of event planners. So there was a lot happening apart from just bonding and studying. And for example, we organized the Service Jam, Kuldiga Service Jam. It's part of the Global Service Jam initiative, if any one of you is aware of this initiative. It's a 48-hour workshop where everyone is prototyping, ideating, very intense time during the 3 days. And we had this intense 3 days, inviting other people to come here and learn service design with us. And yes, it's, sorry, it's a global event, which means the same brief is presented to so many different people around the world. So we had a chance to share our prototypes or ideas of our twins in London and in Bochum, which is the best part, I think, of this global experience, where we could see what other teams are creating as well and share other prototypes with them as well. And yes, this is the organizer, so it's partly the White House, but also other people here, because all the SDSI students either organized, facilitated, or participated in the Global Service Jam. But yes, we didn't stop there, because
as event planners, we organized also the SDN Next Gen Conference. What it is a service design network conference. It's happening online, but we organized an event here. So a watch party where everyone could actually experience the conference here and watch it with us. And we not only organize this event, we're also part of the organizing team. Yes, so here's us. Here's all of the international volunteers who helped create the conference come to life. It was truly a global experience, and the three of us here co-organized this, and we worked hard for a few months to make this event happen. Yes, and our Gina, one of our flatmates, was actually a speaker at this conference, which was really impressive. Yes, so just to mention, we not only do the event planning. It's not just studying and event planning. We actually are doing the service design. This is our main passion. And since January, the White House, and actually other teams as well here, are involved in the Student Service Design Challenge. So our house became a permanent workshop space where we really work on the challenge for the past few months. Every weekend we're prototyping, ideating, researching all together. But we also invited other people. Yes, so we opened our house. That happened 2 weeks ago. We opened the doors to our house. We invited people to co-create with us. So we presented our ideas, but also invited everyone to tell us what they think and co-create with us. Yes, and this is final weeks of this project. I can't share the solution with you, that's a bit of a secret, but I can share the beginning of our journey. So I think I'm going to leave you with the video that got us actually to this final round. So we became the finalists of the challenge together with 2 other teams here. So yes, please enjoy. Yes.
Before you continue, I just wanted to explain, because probably some of the audience doesn't know about this Student Service Design Challenge that you said. So we are so super proud that 150 teams applied to the Student Service Design Challenge. 30 of them were selected as finalists, and 4 of those 30 finalists are SDSI teams. So the biggest number in the world of finalists are here in this room tonight.
Thanks so much. Yes, I didn't want to make it sound so important because the video doesn't seem so important. But please enjoy, please see what we created for this challenge, and it's an ongoing process. We're submitting our solution soon. Thank you.
Agents, we have a new case.
How do we turn the tide to enable more sustainable lives at home? Let's find out.
Guys, did you know that the Latvian household consumption exceeds the EU average?
Also, at the national level, Latvian households are the largest consumer of energy.
And even though there's actually a decrease in the number of households in Latvia, energy consumption remains constantly high.
Actually, people don't understand how the energy gets to them, to their houses.
And that's why they're not willing to change their daily habits.
Guys, we have it. People just don't have the power.
Okay, let's change it.
So, let's give people the power back.
Okay, that's enough. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. So that's the end of the White House story. I will have the last accent for you in terms of the student stories, but this one is more of a song rather than a story. So let's welcome Lulu, who's going to sing a song for us. She's been involved with a local folklore group, and yes, let's hear what she has to present.
outro, the folk music, and the people here. So I will shorten my story in this song. And sorry, without mic. But yeah, like this is the best wishes I want to give to all of my colleagues and to the people here, and of course all of our teachers. I really have a wonderful, wonderful moment here. So I wanted to somehow pass this positive emotion to all of you present here, and thank you very much for participant and yeah, for this 1 year's companionship here. Thank you. Okay, this is it from us. Yes, exactly. I just want to say thank you from all the SDSI students. It's so wonderful to have everyone here listen to our stories, and I hope we didn't bore you. And I'm going to give the floor back to Ilses.
Well, thank you, everyone. To Agatha and team and all of you for helping us to organize this event. That's one thing. Yulu, you were just unbelievable. Such a surprise.
Yeah, I think Yulu will be the star now, including. Yes, and you will have to come back as well, probably. But why we are here, not only to say thank you for being with us in this special moment, but it's also when we want to mention and celebrate our second graduates. Because even though the diplomas they are going to receive in 21st of June, at least here in Art Academy of Latvia, and in Finland I think it's 13th of June when you will get the final grade. But for us, we can say now that you are our graduates.
And it's a celebration. So we want to mention all your names, and actually we hope to see one of you also here. So
anyway, so names, now my memory. So this year we have graduates Liga. And yes. Liga? No. Then we have graduate Edgars. We are, Edgars is Latvian, Liga is also Latvian. Let's, because it's now the question about memory. So, Marian from Finland. Yes. Fia and Paulina as well from Finland. Jane from Ukraine and Anastasia as well. And I have to mention that these girls were accepted special conditions here with us, and I'm so happy that they are going to graduate, and yeah, this is...
Yes, and Eunice from Singapore.
Yes, and Eunice from Singapore.
And we can also congratulate Eunice was continuing her study path with doctoral studies at the University of Lapland. She has been admitted, so we are super happy. Yes. And Celia from Algeria.
Celia, yes. Yes. That's it? Yes, this is he's counting. Okay, so yes, congratulations, and next year we are hoping to see 30 graduates.
And it's gonna be a tough task to remember all the names. 30.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, anyway, guys, thank you for being us today. And the new students that are watching us online, we're very much looking forward to seeing you in September here. Hello. And we're gonna cry for the current year one students when you go further to Finland and Estonia. But we are going to visit you sometime.
Yes, and you stay and we stay in Slack.
Thank you, everyone, once again, and have a wonderful evening.